Is there evidence to suggest that humans are evolving new sensory capabilities that may allow us to see new realities or dimensions of existence? Could these new realities help explain the so-called paranormal events common throughout human history? Is the UFO phenomenon revealing an unseen world with unknown intelligences? Or are all of these mysteries actually revealing something about ourselves and our place in the universe?
Of the psychologists who've dealt with these problems, and there have been many, for me, Carl Jung says the most.
Fantasy has a proper reality. That is not to be forgotten. Fantasy is not nothing. It is, of course, not a tangible object, but it is a fact nevertheless. It is, a form of energy.
Okay, so now, before you were talking about the people who were the mutants, either being in the mental hospitals or being geniuses. Yeah. These are people who have expanded perception, and hence they can see a reality which ordinary people at this stage of evolution are not able to see. What is the nature of that reality which they're able to see?
Well, that is classified as a non-physical reality.
Dreams and mythological representations share an essentially narrative structure. It's not so unreasonable to notice that a dream at night is like the movie that you play in your head. And it's not unreasonable to note as well that the dreams that you have at night bear a relationship to the daydreams that you have during the day. It's a form of cognition. It seems like an involuntary form of cognition, though, and that's a very strange thing. So Jung thought about the dream as nature speaking of its own accord. And so his idea was, well, when you sleep, you dream, but the dream happens to you. It's not something that you create the way that, and you don't even think about creating it. Because I might say, well, what are you thinking about? And you'll say, I'm thinking about whatever it is, and you'll take credit in some sense for thinking that because it seems like a voluntary activity. But what happens at night is that you think, but you think involuntarily. And so what Jung would say is that means that something is thinking in you. There are things that think in you. What are those things? And what are they thinking? And why are they thinking it?
In the time before Reformation, people dreamt of the great change. And that's the reason why such great transformations could be predicted. If somebody has been clever enough to see what there is going on in people's mind, in the unconscious mind, would be able to predict it. For instance, I have predicted the Nazi rising in Germany through the observation of my German patients. They had dreams in which the whole thing was anticipated, and with considerable detail.
You suggest that UFOs are deliberately trying to manipulate our subconscious mind to create a mythology in our culture about themselves, which is one of the reasons that they're both physical and concrete, yet very elusive at the same time. Do you still feel that way?
Could the UFO phenomenon be manipulating us? Could it be a teaching system of some sort? Perhaps something that we are creating ourselves, perhaps a series of images that we are projecting.
Why do you think we dream? What place do we go to when we dream? And why are they useful? Not just the assimilation aspect, but just like all the crazy visuals that we get with dreams.
I suspect that dreaming is more metabolically costly as a conscious experience than not dreaming. So you could still have REM sleep, but absent the conscious experience of dreaming was probably less metabolically costly. And we've now since discovered that dreams have a function. The first, as we mentioned, creativity. The second is that dreams provide a form of overnight therapy. Dreaming is a form of emotional first aid. And it's during dream sleep at night that we take these difficult, painful experiences that we've had during the day, sometimes traumatic, and dream sleep acts almost like a nocturnal soothing balm. And it sort of just takes the sharp edges off those difficult, painful experiences so that you come back the next day and you feel better about them. It's not time that heals all wounds. It's time during dream sleep that provides emotional convalescence. What we've discovered is that people who are going through a very difficult experience, a trauma, for example, a very painful divorce, those people who are dreaming, but dreaming of that difficult event itself, they go on to gain resolution to their clinical depression 1 year later. Whereas people who were dreaming just as much, but not dreaming about the trauma itself, did not go on to gain as much clinical resolution to their depression. So
fascinating. This definitely is applied in much cruder ways in artificial intelligence. So one context in which this is applied is the process called self-play, which is reinforcement learning, where agents play against itself or versions of itself, and it's all simulated of trying different versions of themselves and playing against each other to see what ends up being a good.
No, I think it's been a theory that's been put forward, which is that dreaming is a virtual reality test space that is largely consequence-free.
Yeah.
What an incredible gift to give a conscious mind each and every night.
The dream is trying to tell you what it's trying to tell you as clear as it can. That's just the best it can do. And so you could think of the dream, and this is, I believe, the right way to think about it. The dream is the birthplace of thought, the same way that artists are the birthplace of culture. It's exactly the same process. It's that your mind is groping outward to try to comprehend what it has not yet comprehended. And it does that first by trying to map it onto image.
This orb, huge thing, was hovering right over where she got killed. It's what it did, it spoke to me in a way that I understood in these images.
What the spirits of form want to achieve with us until the end of our earthly development must first be embodied in images, and these images will later be instrumental in transforming humanity. They will then become real.
This is SkyFireNews, the best UFO show on the internet. SkyFireNews is on the internet. SkyFireNews. UFO show on the internet. SkyFireNews is on the internet. Come look for the TV, SkyFireNews. This is SkyFireNews, the best UFO show on the internet. SkyFireNews is on the internet. SkyFireNews.
My birthday, friends all around. I should feel lucky. But I looked at my phone and seen that Gary Nolan blocked me. What the hell? How does he even know about me? The cake comes out, everyone is smiling. I know I should be happy too, but I'm dying. I'm fucking dying. Because Gary Nolan blocks me. The world is crumbling all around me. I wanted Gary to tell me why he shared Chris Bartell's brain scans on TV. It's my birthday, friends all around. I should feel lucky. But I looked at my phone and seen that Gary Nolan blocked me. What the hell? How does he even know about me? The cake comes out, everyone is smiling. I know I should be happy too, but I'm dying. I'm fucking dying. Because Gary Nolan blocks me. The world is crumbling all around me. I wanted Gary to tell me what aliens are planning. And I can't blow out my candles because of all of
Hello, welcome to the show, guys. It is SkyFireNews Live. I'm your host, Tupacabra. We got Red Panda Koala coming in the mix. Great day for a show. And look who just popped in. Dude, I love this. Guys, as you know, the Vatican made a huge announcement this morning. Pretty early this morning, but it was made, and it's regarding what they're going to do about reports of metaphysical paranormal events and sightings and whatnot, which I think is really interesting. And they got asked a couple questions that were UFO related, and even News Nation weighed in on the angels versus aliens debate, which I love. It's one of my favorite debates. Earlier, before the show started, I played some clips from a documentary I was working on called Shadows of the Invisible Sun. If you want to check that out, check out my YouTube channel. But I thought it was an interesting kind of icebreaker for the show and for the show's topics. But, you know, we can get into that later. I want to say what's up to everybody in the chat. I want to get Red Panda Koala up here. I want to start playing some clips, the highlights from the Vatican announcement. And, of course, we have Jon Majerowski, the one and only host of UFOs on the Level. Jon is a real friend of the show, friend of mine, friend of Red's, and we love watching the show grow. We love watching what he's doing. If you guys haven't seen UFOs on the Level, I really suggest you do. He talks to some really, really interesting people about some groundbreaking things that not a lot of people dive into on the UFO topic or in the UFO culture. So definitely check that out. Nicholas Cole, hola. Without further ado, let's get Red Panda Koala up here. Red Panda, how you doing, man?
What's up, Tupa? How is chat doing? I'm doing good.
Chat's doing good.
Crazy day, right?
Dude.
I think we manifested reality, too, because we got hella roasted.
You think so?
Yeah, just casual right off the bat. We got hella roasted for saying that they were going to talk about aliens, right? But then all of the coverage around them talking about aliens forced them to talk about aliens, right? So
yes.
So I talked to John too.
I'm pumped.
Collecting a few more things as we start the show, because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. Because the things they said, I think a lot of the things they said had direct ties into ufology, American ufology specifically, and the disclosure movement. Even if it was a no stance, right? So we'll get into that, but it was interesting day nonetheless.
Yes. And I mean, it's really interesting too. I mean, like modern ufology post Pasolka American Cosmic is a very different world, right, than it was before. That's my opinion. But as you collect that, let's get John in here. John's here. He's backstage. I think we should get him in here and then just start catching up on old times, man. What do you guys think in the chat?
I like
okay, we're going to give John 3 minutes. 3 minutes to stage time. So until then, guys, I want to know your questions for John. John is a Freemason, and not one of those spooky kinds, at least as far as I know, right? So check, if you have any questions for John about this Vatican stuff or about anything else, pop it in the chat. We'll make sure to get it over there. Of course. Of course.
Could you put in that cool Vatican graphic you had the other day too, like 2 days ago?
Oh, let's see. Let's see which one. Where he's like in a pool?
Not that one. The one the day before.
I like that one. That one was pretty sick.
Where it was like a bunch of popes from different time periods and then like a cloud background.
Oh, I like that one.
That one was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a good eye. You got a good eye for these thummies. Let's see. Let's get the Vatican in the mix. So spooky.
Cause So, and I guess we'll just talk a little bit about it too before we get into it, but kind of where I want to go with it. And honestly, Tupa, it ties into you, bro. I think you might have fed into this.
What do you mean?
Today.
What do you mean?
I'm serious. Okay, so we're gonna get into it hardcore, but I guess the general gist is they were kind of like, I felt like this was the buck stops here kind of thing. They were saying the vibe I got from the whole thing was like, there's all these people around the world who are claiming apparitions and kind of doing all this stuff kind of loosey-goosey. And it's not going through the official Vatican channels. And anything that's supernatural or UFO or angel will go through the official Vatican channels. And the reason I say it ties into you is because I think this is also a direct statement on people like Chris Bledsoe, right? But also American politicians and congressmen who are saying some of the supernatural phenomena we're seeing is angels, right? Which is a conversation you had with an American congressman, right?
Yes.
So like,
I pressed the point for sure.
I kind of read this as like an American congressman doesn't decide what an angel is, the Vatican does, kind of thing.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? That's
I like that.
broad, but do you get where I'm going with this though, right?
Yes. It is being theorized very deeply and seriously by people in the media and in politics. And like you said, like if the Vatican decides that they're the authority behind it, then they're going to have something to say, And I think you might be right here. They're like saying, hey, like, we're not messing around. I, like, on the surface thought that it was saying like, hey, we're not going to investigate anymore. We're not coming out. We're not looking into this. It doesn't serve us. We're going to cut that out. But that's not it.
Should we maybe also shout out the chat while John reboots here?
Yeah, let's do that.
Do
That's a good idea.
I'm 'cause I got some cool little graphics, visuals, just while we talk about some of the stuff I want to bring up.
Hell yeah!
Boom.
Chat, we love you guys for being here. We love our members. We love our followers. We love even just the viewers if you're out there checking it out. If you guys are in Twitter world, pop over to YouTube. Give us a like. Give us a sub. We're dropping content and live shows. Sorry. And we're getting over colds. Rain or shine. Sickness and in health. We're bringing it to you guys live. We got Alana in the chat. First one here. Alana, you win. You won Friday, which is the most important day of the week. As you guys know, we score way more liberally on Friday. So way to be here for it. Casual links. Love seeing you in the chat early. Pizza Slayer, great to have you here. We got Mick Burner. It's raining secret societies. It really is. It really is. Heather Birdie, I want pizza. Powerful. Powerful stuff. Darth McBee, what's up, fellas? What's up, Darth? Pepper Gozen, friend of the show, great meme maker.
One of the best.
One of the best.
On par with Cosmic Judas, in my opinion.
Alien Girl, good to see you. We got a member, Sassy, in the
Love
house.
Alien Girl. Shouts out Alien Girl. And
Alien Girl's
Sassy.
in the mix. I love seeing her in the chat too. These guys are funny, and that keeps the show going. Dude. Oh, did you see David Altman's here?
Hell yeah! What's up,
I was
David?
playing the Rick Doty song, and so he decided to say leave Rick alone, which we try to leave him alone. Who else we got? Okay. Oh my God, Nicholas Cole, good to see you. You seem to be a friend of John, so it's great to have you here. Hold on while I cough. Sorry, folks. Whoa, Gabriel Lundes, you made it here before the end of the show today. You must be pumped, because we're pumped to have you.
Hell yeah, Gabriel.
Go
real.
Ooh, Samael Stone. Hey, Tupa. Hey, what's up, dog? Derek Daughtry, good to see you. A lot of these YouTubers, they don't really mess with Twitter. Twitter's its own like wild horse that not everybody wants to tame. You know what I mean? So some people stay completely out of it, but not Jaime Musan. Oh no!
Blah.
Oh no! Ask the Freemason why Manly P. Hall was murdered. Well, that's a spicy question. We'll see. And he's got a name.
Well, John's not afraid
He's got
of
a name.
questions. John is not afraid of questions.
He's really not.
I mean, honestly, I feel like being a Freemason in this thing, right, in a conspiracy subculture, I'm sure he gets all these questions all the time. And maybe with that, let's bring up John.
John, welcome to the show, John. Good to have you back, man.
What's up? How you guys doing?
What's up?
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. You sound great.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
It's been a while. You were one of our first guests.
I know, right? That was rad.
Yeah.
That was super awesome. Yeah.
That was fun times.
Yeah. That was the show's been on fire since then, man. Thus the name, right?
Yes.
SkyFireNews.
We had to live up to the name. We really did. We really did.
I love it. You guys are rocking it, man. Rocking it.
Well, huge inspiration from you. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time and doing it well too.
Oh no, thanks. I always give props to James Ian Doley, man. He's my dude. He's the guy who set me up. He said you should do this, and I said no way. And he said, yeah, you should do this. And I said, okay.
Really?
Yeah. And Ian Doley's like the nicest guy. You know, he's amazing show, engaging the phenomenon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing channel, amazing dude.
It's one of the most important channels, I think, in modern ufology. Like the guests he gets, and he is one of the nicest, if not the nicest guy in ufology.
The only reason I actually exist on YouTube was because of James. Seriously. So, yeah.
Shouts out.
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
Big fan of the show.
Does he have any side projects he's working on these days?
Well, I mean, he and King put on the Inquire Anomalous in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do that. I think they've done 2 now, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they've done more than 2.
Maybe you're right.
I think they've done at least 4.
Wow. Yeah,
it almost seemed like it could be like a quarterly thing.
It's rad. I just can't make it. The timing, it just seems weird for me. I think I don't know if it's the fall or whatever it is, but I just can't get there for whatever reason. But I always want to go because that's awesome. That's like an intimate little venue, and it's just real small, and it seems rad. People I've talked to that have been there said it was awesome. So
I went to the first one.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. So you dug it? Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Great place to network with people. Great place to see the conversations and just kind of like sit down with them afterwards. Everyone went out to drinks afterwards and had some FaceTime. So I recommended it. It was a good time.
Hell yeah. That's rad, man. It's good to connect with people, and not just talk shit over the internet.
Yes.
And each other.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's totally what it is, too. It's like...
Yeah.
Talk shit IRL at those things, right? We've all seen the video.
Hell yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Yeah. But yeah, what Panda and I met up at Contact in the Desert.
I know, and it's almost a year. It's coming up again, but I think last time you were here, you said you weren't going. Is that still the case?
Yeah. I'm not going this year. I've been slammed. I got all kinds of other shit going on. Jay from Project Union, he's going out again though. So he's actually presenting this year. So, so that's gonna be rad. So be cool to hear him. To see how that goes out. I have to buy one of the DVDs, man. We were talking about that the other day, and it's like so old school, right? Panda, like everybody's lecture, like they videotape them, and I swear it's tape, right? It's probably tape. And then some dude runs back to like the end of the hotel, and you walk in there, and there's like PC towers that are like 4 foot tall, and it's all DVDs, right? And they're just literally burning that lecture, right, on DVD, and you can it's like 2 for 10 or 10 for I don't remember what.
Damn.
It's like it's like like a printed out label that's stuck to the front of the DVD, And I bought a couple of them. I got home and one of them didn't work. I had to find a DVD player somewhere and like hook it up to a PC and like.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even know how I'd play a DVD nowadays.
Forget it, right? Forget it.
Email it, dude. Yeah. That is wild.
Yeah. So it's kind of a different scene, right? Right. I mean, it's cool though. It's a way different scene, but
yeah, I'm fascinated by how information got shared, especially in this topic, right? Pre-internet. So yeah, that's super interesting.
Oh, it's newsletters and shit. I got some newsletters here and some printouts from like 90, 93, 94. It was called UFO TV, man, and it was you get a postcard once a month, and it would just have everything on it that you could want to buy, and then you would send in the money, like $20, whatever it was, for a VHS, and like a month later that VHS would show up, right, and you would get that, and then they started printing out like 4 or 5 sheets of stuff, and it'd be like. This panel with Linda Moulton Howell and like 15 other people, and like it's just crazy, man. And that's what I grew up on, dude. That's what I grew up on. I grew up on those VHSs, right? And
the newsletters.
Yeah. It's like they'd have little blurbs in there, like, hey, coming up in the summer, we're gonna have this thing in Palm Springs and blah blah blah. So that's how it was, man.
By the time I got into it, like the internet was a thing, even though it was kind of a baby thing.
Right.
And so all the information was like at abovetopsecret.com and like the Black Vault. I remember like these old school like sites. But I never had to be part of a newsletter or mail in something for tapes. I did that once for like a guitar, like a guitar training thing once from the back of a Guitar Center magazine. That's the only thing I think I got.
Yeah, dude, I took all the VHSs that I had that were still like, because a lot of them just got moldy and shit, and they were like worthless, right? But all the ones that I could save, I started a YouTube channel called Saving VHS, and I put it all up there. So everything that's on that, it's linked into UFOs on the Level. So if you check that out, it says it's just called Saving VHS, and it's all those tapes that I had since I was a kid, man, and I put them up there. So I can't believe it hasn't gotten copyright strike yet. But I mean, really. I don't know, man. There's like legit, it's somebody with a camcorder back in like 89, 90, right? Like videotaping these lectures. So I don't know if there's any copyright or whatever, but they haven't been taking it down. I didn't try to monetize it either. Just put it out there, Like,
I wonder if Corbell was the cameraman behind any of those.
I don't know. He's probably doing flips and jujitsu in the back or something.
That's true.
I've heard he was doing some weird cameraman stuff or like sleeping at weird people's houses in like the early 2000s in this scene. Have y'all ever heard that? Not in a bad way.
Like John Lear. John Lear. He would who was telling us this?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I heard about it anyway.
Yeah,
I heard about it anyway. Like,
I did.
Corbell was out there. Like a lot of these early videos I saw of John Lear and Knapp and Lazar. Corbell was the cameraman behind those.
Yeah, there's some weird connections with Corbell if you look into it real hard.
Yeah.
Everyone in this field, huh?
Yeah.
Your
There's nothing
great-grandpa did what?
Yeah, right? What? Wait a minute. You related to who? And they did what? The fuck? That's how it all works out, man. Everything that I've seen.
Is that because of like synchronicities or something that's more obvious?
I don't know, man. I've gone back and forth with that whole thing. I've gone back and forth like, well, you know how it works. You're just family, right? So it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, your kid's into it now. All right, cool. Your grandson, or your uncle or something, maybe, so they're cool. Or maybe it is a synchronicities, or maybe it does follow families, right? Or maybe it follows genetics or something like that. I don't know. But it could be just everybody kind of knows people and then they are already trusting of them or whatever. And, they have an interest in it. Or, I don't know, it could be the whole phenomenon follows you around or follows. I mean, they said it for a long time. I mean, one of the early things on with abductions was that it followed families, that people that were abducted, their kids were abducted, and so on and so on and so on. But I don't know if there's any proof to that.
And some would ask their parents and find out their parents were abducted, and like, yeah, they feel like they've been followed for generations.
Right. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not.
Well, you also got like Gary Nolan, implying a genetic link, and markers for these things, and the idea that it is in families, and it's a rare thing. But he said he has it, his family has it, his sister has it. So there's something to be said there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they're taking the experiencers' DNA and doing what with it? Who knows? What, right. They won't even say. So there's that. So there's got to be something to that, right?
Have you ever heard of genetic memory?
Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm. Right? Like, do our genes carry the memories of our past? Like, the experiences of our ancestors, do they carry that with them?
I feel like it does, and I feel like it does because of one reason. I was researching the Russians 70 years ago, it's probably 80 years ago now, started domesticating foxes. Have you heard this story? So it was in Siberia. They put these foxes, and it was all outside, and they'd walk up to the cage and put their hand up, and if the fox didn't want to chew your hand off, they bred that fox, those two foxes together. They did that for 7 generations, and after 7 generations, the fox's ears started to get rounder, their tails got shorter. They basically took on like dog or cat-like characteristics. They were super tame and everything. So they were saying that like you can breed any type of trait within 7 generations of something. So it's pretty wild. And the genetic memory is kind of wild too. Like, so it kind of, I can't remember what was the other study they did where it was something with mice where they made mice afraid of strawberries or something crazy like that. Or like they were super afraid of strawberries. And whenever that time they ate a strawberry, they would get electric shocked or whatever. And they passed that down to the next generation, believe it or not, like it was the very next generation. And then it like extended for 7 generations after that. Something bizarre. So that whole, and it wasn't like the offspring were subjected to the same thing, right? They would just like see a strawberry and just take off. It was just, like weird, right? So there's that whole component, which I don't think we completely understand at all. Zero. I don't have any idea. I mean, we screw around with it. Some people might know, but
dog breeders, I think, have a lot of experience with this, which I was surprised to find, right? Which is that the puppies will take on the traits, the fears, the behavioral quirks of their parents without even being around them.
Yeah, there was a wild one. I actually thought of this the other day randomly out of nowhere, and it was a documentary, and I think it was a book I read too. It was Canada. There was this big power outage in Canada, and it was a big ice storm, and like this whole part of Canada didn't have power for like months, and all of the babies that were born during that time, all these women were pregnant and they had to like go chop wood and like start fires. Like it was like it was in the 70s somewhere, but they followed these women and they followed their kids, and all of the kids, because the mothers had so much anxiety and so much worry and all the stuff that had happened, all the kids had that instantly. They were like really anxious. They had like developmental problems, ADHD, shit like that. And they like kind of attributed it to that whole period of what happened, like instantly. So the mother's anxiety, whatever, went directly to their child in womb. So,
dude, I wonder what the studies are going to look like after COVID. Kids start growing up.
Fuck. Mm-hmm. I don't know. You're right.
It's weird. I'll tell you right now. I got a 4-year-old, right, in preschool. I got a 13-year-old about to go to high school, and
right.
There's a big difference between before COVID and after.
Mm-hmm.
Schools are different. The trends are different. Like the teachers are different. It's
the world.
We'll see. That's so true, man. That's so true.
And then the Vatican's like, hey, we got to talk about some stuff.
Yeah, can we get that? Because dude, it was like you're the perfect. Oh wait, our thing's all messed over here. What should we do? This way?
What are you talking about? Everything's good.
Yes.
You're the perfect guest for this day. This happened. The Vatican prepares a statement on apparitions, paranormal phenomena. Wow.
I have an entire chapter in my book about the Vatican. Actually, it's probably 2. I need to probably cut it back. I went off on a fucking tangent.
Oh wow,
I went bad. I got real south on it.
So, what's your take on the Vatican from your book and stuff?
Ah, fuck. This is where they come and get me now. The Jesuits are going to show up and fucking get me. But
Danny
Sheehan, secret Jesuit, Christos, Lucifer. Yeah, man. So like, I have a little bit of distaste. I mean, I was raised Catholic, right? I was born. I mean, I had to, right? I was forced to be Catholic. I was, born Catholic. But when it was a year ago now that the Vatican it came back out. I think it was maybe it was maybe even beginning of this year. I have to look again, but I was super pissed where they came back out and reaffirmed the ban on Freemasonry, and they did it in the Philippines, which was huge. It's a huge Catholic community, but there were so many people in the Philippines that were becoming Freemasons that they had to like dig out the papal order from 14 or whatever, 14 something, and then previous, and then they just came out and just like reiterated it that if you're a Freemason, you cannot be a Catholic. Like you're excommunicated. It doesn't fit with the doctrine and all this shit. And everybody was pissed, and I got really pissed again because I'm like, we're not doing anything, to warrant this shit at all. And then I started looking into it, and I started asking some brothers about it. In the Philippines, actually, the guy who founded the Philippines, who started a revolution, much like America, much like France, much like a lot of the other countries all over the world, was a Freemason, right? He led the revolution to free the Philippines. Well, that guy actually had a bill made, a commemorative bill made with his picture on it and whatever. And it's the first time that there was ever a Masonic square and compass on a money denomination anywhere. Right. So that was in like 2012. So I found one of those on eBay, it was pretty rad. But then I started looking into it and I'm like, well, why the hell is the Vatican pushing so hard in the Philippines? And like, what's the big deal? Well, come to find out there were so many people in the Philippines that were Freemasons, but were also Catholic and doing good things in the community. Right. So like you're in the Philippines, you're Freemason. That's what we always do. Right. Like everywhere, we just try to make everything better everywhere for everybody. So you're donating money, you're donating time, you're doing all these things to help the community, to help everybody around you. And the church wasn't, this is my opinion, but from what it looked like is the church wasn't getting their donations like they used to. The guys that were Masons were helping out their community. They were spending money to do things like, oh, we're going to build this school for these kids. We're going to build this thing for these people who need it, and not just handing the money over to the church. And I think they started getting a little pissy about it. And, pretty much re-up that decree saying, hey, you're not Catholic anymore. You got to pick one, right? Which really fucking sucks. And I've seen that before, where, they're just not getting the money that goes. And, a lot of people don't know this, but like if you're at your local church and you hand them $5 when the plague comes around, that money goes right back to Rome. It doesn't sit in your church. And then Rome decides how much money that they can give to the church to do whatever about it, right? Not a lot of people know that. So I
didn't know that.
So it's not staying right there. It's not helping your, the light bill or whatever, right? It's going back to Rome, and then they can dish out the money to wherever, right? So, but like I said, when the lodges are like, hey, we need, books for kids for school. Okay, we're going to start a fundraiser, and we're going to build this or whatever. It stays right there. So it really pisses me off because it's a money thing. It's not a thing about we're in the back corner worshiping the devil. It's fucking, that's not any part of it at all, right? There's nothing to do with that, right? To be a Freemason, you got to be a man, freeborn, and you got to believe in a higher power. You can believe in the flying fucking spaghetti monster, right? But you got to believe in a higher power, right? You don't have to believe in Allah or Baba or the 40 thieves, fucking anything you want to believe in, but you have to believe in somebody, a higher power. Those are the things of Freemasonry, right? So, I mean, I've been in lodges where there's the fucking Quran, the Bible, name a book, and it was there, right? So that's just how it works. And I've been talking for a while. Sorry.
No, that's interesting. I love it. Was there an emphasis on the Philippines when they issued that statement?
Yeah, it came right out of the Philippines. It was from the Archbishop of whatever in the Philippines, and I have to dig it up, man. My internet's being real fucking spotty right now. Or I'd start googling it before you can pull it up. But yeah, I got really pissed about it, and I had to have some of my brothers talk me down. They're like, it's just.
Oh,
it's just like, no, it's just they've always been doing that. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
John's about to go Rambo in the Philippines.
Serious stuff.
Don't get on that plane, John.
I'm telling you, man. It's just like all these people are doing are trying to make it better for other people, and somebody's trying to squash that by saying you're, not allowed to be in a religion. It's fucking stupid. So my theory is good. Good, And then this thing, I mean, did you guys read this whole thing? Did you see the papal decree this morning? It came out like 6 a.m., by the way.
Yes.
Eastern Standard Time, because it was like 3 a.m. or it was 3 a.m. there. I don't know, the fucking time change. Because, there's like Vatican time, right? It's not even just fucking...
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Google that shit. It's called Vatican ET. It's a weird thing, man. I mean, they have their own, they have basically their own state within a state. They have their own
Vatican time. Have you ever heard of cosmic time?
Oh yeah.
Have patience on me. Don't give up on me. I'm on cosmic time.
Okay, not cosmic time. Sidereal time is what sidereal. Elon Musk's latest kid, his middle name is Sidereal.
No way.
And sidereal is the time when the Earth is blocking the center of the galaxy. So, like, if you're looking at the center, of like the Earth is here in the center of the galaxy, sidereal time is the time where you're on the backside of Earth and like the center of the galaxy.
Oh, we're good.
Mazel tov. So yeah, it's like basically you're blocking out the center of the galaxy. They say that's like the best time to RV and the time you're most psychic, because you're blocking the center of the galaxy from Earth. So you're on this side of Earth. The Earth is here. You're on the back side of it, and the center of the galaxy is here. And that's sidereal time. It's an actual time that they use for space navigation and shit. So his fucking kid's middle name is Sidereal, by the way, which is sidereal time.
So
that sounds futuristic as hell to name your kid.
Before we heard about this statement, what are your thoughts on generally the Vatican as far as information gathering goes, as far as UFOs go? You know, we got Grush saying that they helped us get our first ever saucer years before Roswell.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. And I'm biased, right? Because I'm a fucking Freemason. I'm a Knights Templar. I'm like all of those things, right? I'm a Rosicrucian. I'm like all of them. So you look back at the history, and they just wanted to burn all of us all the time. And it was because anybody that challenges their power or their belief that gets in their way, they just take care of, right? And if you think about it, they're like the OG mob. They're the OG CIA, right? The OG NSA. Yes. They had people everywhere, right? They were the ones who started all of that before there was anything there. And who's to say that it's not still ongoing, right? With those ties to those connections and those things, right? So, yeah, I would think that it's in their best interest. I mean, if you look at Senator, like nobody knows this, Senator Bill Nelson was in Rome this week. They had a thing called like #BeingHuman or #human or hashtag something like that. The Vatican was promoting all week.
It's a weird title.
Yeah, right? And Bill Nelson was there, and they're like, "Why are you here?" And they get an interview with him, and I could just picture Bill Nelson going, "Well, we don't know what's on the other side of the moon." Yeah. But Bill Nelson was like basically saying, "Thank you very much because the Vatican has a massive observatory. They've had it since the 1700s or 1600s.
Doesn't it have like a weird name too?
Well, there's a couple of them. The one that's in Rome, and then there's another one in Mount Graham in Arizona. That's the one that had the nomenclature of Lucifer.
Yeah, the Lucifer Observatory.
Yeah, it was like the large something. It's a binocular. It's still maybe the largest binocular telescope on the planet. So it's basically like a giant set of binoculars telescope that can see fucking forever. And
is that the one that got like raided and shut down for a brief period of time?
No, that was a different one. But this one is really screwed up too. I think it was Apache, the Native Americans. It was their sacred site, and they basically kicked them off the land. The Jesuits kicked them off the land and said they've never been doing any type of ceremonies there. They've never been doing any type of. There's no proof. And it's like, well, yeah, they're not building fucking temples on the mountain because they believe in nature, right? They're not. They're like, show us any proof. So it went to court. Believe it or not. And the court actually ruled in favor of the Vatican, and they built like that giant telescope there on Mount Graham.
The one called Lucifer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They changed the name because it got so much bad press too.
Well, go figure, right? Whose PR dream was that, right? Like, the Vatican comes in, takes over some sacred land, builds an observatory, right, and then calls that place, Lucifer. They had to change the name because people objected, and the court sided with the Vatican during a lawsuit between them and the local tribe.
Yep. I think it was the Apache tribe, yeah. And they're still pissed. You can't go up there. They'll like arrest you. And it's really weird. If you talk to the locals, the cops aren't even allowed there. There's certain times of the year that they just shut that whole thing down, and they have military guys, no insignia, all blacked. SUVs. You can't get on the fucking mountain. They don't care who the fuck you are. You can't get up there. You can't get even near it. They told the cops to fuck off. Seriously.
Oh man, there's some weird stuff in this country that goes on where you'd think they're like, no, that would never fly. You're like, oh, it's flying.
Mount Graham in Arizona. Yeah.
Now, what's the deal with Arizona? I mean, I hear
It's
so many
dry.
different strange events take place in the southwestern United States, especially Arizona, New Mexico. Of
Mhm.
course, we have the nuclear test sites there, but then you have Roswell, right? One of the first events there. Is there some kind of like a weak spot in the veil between the worlds there?
Yeah, I think it follows that whole. I can't. I always get this wrong. It's the 33rd parallel or 32nd parallel, whatever.
39th, I think.
Is it?
Let me see.
It's one of the parallels, right? So it's a different thing. But if you, here's a tip that I usually don't drop, but I'll give it to everybody. Go check out negative anomaly zones, negative magnetic anomaly zones across the world. There, you can get for the USGS Gov maps that you can overlay on top of Google Earth, and they're negative anomaly zones. So basically, like you have negative magnetic pockets all over the place. And if you look, it's like fucking Skinwalker Ranch, Blind Frog. It's like all the places that you can see that show up on all the things. And it's global. It's all over the place, right? But there's different spots all over the place that have that negative magnetic anomaly zone. So
I'm looking this up right now. This is wild. Yeah, places where the Earth's magnetic field is extremely weak.
yeah, that's it.
Huh.
So yeah, when you do weird shit in those places, and if you're like L. Ron Hubbard and fucking Jack Parsons, I mean, maybe, I don't know, shit might happen.
So before we dive into what's going on here, I kind of wanted to show, like we did the other day, some clips of just because our UFO community was hyped, right, for this. Because some of the people within the community have been making some statements. So look at, and I definitely, after we go through this Vatican stuff, I wanted to get your take, John, on what Lou said this week, some of the statements he made, but we'll save that for later, right? I think his death threats, that was pretty wild, but here's Elizondo on the Vatican. I don't know if y'all remember this from a few years back.
There's historical record in religious texts going way back to including the Judeo-Christian faith system that these things have been around for a while. When I was at the Vatican, they some individuals there had provided some very compelling evidence to suggest that we've been dealing with this phenomenon for quite some time.
All right, now I'm going to stop sharing this. I want to pull up this other Grush one real quick.
Real quick, do you see? I like Dave Grush when he gets his goatee, because you know how like the goatee is the bad guy in all the comic books, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Dave Grush became bad guy Dave Grush, right?
Evil Grush.
Evil Grush. Fucking coming out.
I like clean shave Grush. Boom. But here's Grush on Rogan talking about the Vatican. So this was pretty wild because he claims he found out about this stuff. Oh yeah, that is. This poor guy can never catch a break, huh?
Like he just smelled a fart.
Yeah. Joe Rogan gave him the smelling salts.
What's important is he claims he got all this information while on the UAP task force, right? While having like clearances and stuff to investigate this specifically.
Yeah.
And when he cast a broad net, what came up was this Vatican stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
Before 1945, because, like I said, Pope Pius XII already kind of let FDR know.
Why did the Pope get involved? Because it's
Well,
in Italy?
Well, interestingly
well.
enough, there's like a whole history of human intelligence prior to World War II and old money, the Vatican, the Italian mob, kind of the old country boys did a lot of informal intelligence collection for the U.S. And there's probably some books you can read on it, but it's really interesting. Human intelligence collection wasn't really formalized until the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which became the CIA in 1947. You had, Paul Mellon and all was other affluent guys.
So we're hoping.
So my buddy John Warner's grandfather was Paul Mellon. Right.
And he actually viewed this as like a direct call out to him, right? I remember watching that where.
Yeah.
He didn't mention the other Mellon grandpa. But
Yeah. It's Warner's pissed. I mean, they straight up attacked Warner. He was out there vocal and talking shit because he was telling everybody this is bullshit. This is what it's another psyop. They're just trudging you down the line for some more bullshit, and everybody's going to buy it, hook, line, and sinker. Do you think you're going to get disclosure? You're not going to. I can't remember his direct quote, but he's like, it's just like getting weak tea and ginger snaps. You ain't getting shit. It's just, bullshit. and him and his cousin sparred about it, you know. And yeah, I mean, the conversations that Warner and I have had, you know, and John Luke, and you know, about his grandfather and the shit that his grandfather was into, and you know, basically bankrolled and funded and started the OSS, which later became the CIA, and you know, was part of that. And he's right, because that old money goes back, I mean, far, right? And when you look at it in terms of the church, you know, it's like you had the separate. There wasn't, until America, there wasn't really the separation of church and state, right? It was the fucking church. It was just how it was. If you ever tried to have you guys ever done any like digging in history or like ancestry or anything about any of your families? Like, if you go, the only thing that you're going to find that's back into the 1500s or anything like that are church records. So the church had meticulous records, baptisms and weddings and deaths and births and all that shit, right? So they were really meticulous about this shit. So they sat on all these records, and like he said, they did have the knowledge on stuff. They knew what was going on, and they had the ability to communicate, you know, because of the pilgrimages and shit like that. So, and the money, right? Because they're not paying taxes. So there's all that, right? So that you have an endless amount of money. Yeah. Like I said, I really don't want to go down that road, because it just makes me, it really pisses me off. Like one of the things in my book that I wrote about during COVID, the Catholic Church just in America was awarded over $1 billion. You know how the government was just handing out money for people that couldn't work and shit like that? So all the churches all over the U.S. like, yeah, we can't pay our people. So they fucking gave them $1 billion. $1 billion fucking dollars.
Weird. But yeah, that's crazy that
everybody made out in COVID, dude. That's crazy.
I'm just saying, $1 billion. It might even been $1 trillion. It might be $1 trillion. I got to go look back, but it's something stupid. It's something dumb, and it's like, what the fuck? And they're not paying taxes? Like, how just okay, anyway, sorry. Like I said,
yeah, it's crazy. They're talking about John Warner's grandpa right here, Han Rogan, founding the CIA. God bless John Warner. Love his voice in the community.
I love John Warner. Yeah,
there's not like what did I say last time? He's the people's elite or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, he's the coolest dude in the fucking world, man. Seriously. Like, he doesn't give a shit. He just wants the truth, and he knows that we're not getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows a lot. I love talking to that guy.
Families have basically created the CIA, so that's
oh yeah, there it is.
Probably
the
reason why.
So
yeah.
This thing that was recovered, this was the first documented one that the United States had access to?
I can't get into if it was the first or not, but it was an early one.
Very early.
Yeah.
So it's almost 100 years ago.
Yes.
No. And so they take this thing and then they bring it where?
Right, Pat?
Yeah, I can't get into
Right, Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio.
But again, now this is crazy. Like,
not in 33 though. They probably brought it back to.
What have you looked into the Magenta case? Because they're talking about a crash that allegedly happened in 1933, Mussolini's Italy. And
yeah, the documents exist. If you go back, they have the documents. Somebody's released them. That was like, don't talk about this shit. Don't make another telegraph. We don't know what it is. Leave it alone. They thought it was, a spy thing. Another country, a foreign. All those documents exist. All the telegraphs, that are out there about it. I don't speak Italian, so I'm just trusting the word of translators. But
he's really changed the whole American ufology history with this stuff, because it used to be like Roswell was like, I feel like, or maybe something in 45, but now saying like 33 was the earliest knowledge. I don't remember that being as big a part. Everything has a debunk, an official debunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I find that super, super interesting. That's about it for there. Tuba, I was thinking, should we go? Do you want to watch a little bit of that News Nation pre-thing before we watch like the statements that really stick out, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, let's do that. I like what they were kind of like vibing out on. Interesting to hear a News Nation reporter suggest to a scholar and an expert, like, people are saying their angels are aliens. Is that true? I thought that was an interesting question.
Oh, well, just to be fair, this came out as this was.
Yeah, they didn't even have answers. That's
because they filmed this when they were given the live, when the Vatican was doing the press conference. Like, it was as the fucking Vatican was doing the press conference. So.
It feels like they're just filling dead air because they didn't have a translator. So they're like,
bring
a guy up.
Dude, Major Vatican L, right? The no translator, no English. I guess this must be how other people feel. But no, I thought it'd be interesting to see how it was talked about beforehand, because it was kind of hyped up in the community. Would you say maybe a little bit of a letdown? I still think it was very fascinating. I think I'm curious to see what John thinks about like how I think it ties into like Bledsoe and the American disclosure movement.
Yeah. I think it ties really hard, but I'll tell you why, I guess. But yeah, I'm sorry to slow your roll, man.
No. We're rolling through. We're having fun.
Paul Thigpen with a PhD in historical theology and author of the best-selling book titled.
Mind you, this was the guy who was on Ross Coulthart with Tim Burchett.
Right.
So that's important to note. He's like, I don't even know. Was he Tim Burchett's spiritual advisor to some degree or something like that? Why would you?
This guy's done a lot. I've seen a couple of interviews with him. He's done a couple. Interviews. Being a Vatican spokesperson, not official spokesperson, but kind of like a theologian. You know, I don't know where they got this dude, but he's kind of like hip to the UFO scene.
Extraterrestrial intelligence and the Catholic faith. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So you and Congressman Tim Burchett were on News Nation's podcast, Reality Check with Ross Coulthart. Love that podcast. The congressman said he believed the Vatican knows that extraterrestrial life exists. He was very confident. I know you've been following this for a very long time. What do you make of what the Vatican is saying this morning?
Well, it's, I've only found one news site actually reporting that it was going to mention aliens, and they didn't attribute that data point. If you look at the website for it, it limits itself to talking about apparitions and related paranormal phenomena. And it's supposed to be kind of an update of protocols that the Vatican had for handling cases like that. So they only started a few minutes ago. You have them there live right now. So haven't really had the chance to hear what they've said or to see the document itself. My guess is that it will probably not mention aliens. I would be surprised if it did, and all things are possible. But I think it's going to focus on apparitions and the kind of paranormal phenomena that often accompany apparitions. So by apparitions, we mean people who claim to see Jesus or the Virgin Mary or angels or other saints, and sometimes to hear things as well.
So is there evidence of angels and aliens being one of the same? Do you believe that could be true, sir?
I think what we're encountering right now in the UAP studies is probably different things. There are a few things that I think seem to fit a demonic profile, but I don't think the majority of them do. Others, I suppose, could be angelic sightings, but I think it likely that we're talking about some other things too. Genuine extraterrestrial intelligence, perhaps intelligent species that are crypto here on Earth. I think it could be a lot of things.
Crypto-terrestrials. Didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm. Where are you guys at on the angels aliens overlap?
Tupa, go.
I'm all in on it. I'm all in. I think that I say that because I'm ignorant to the true definition of angels to any biblical or Catholic official definition. You know what I mean? I have looked into it, but I tend to think that some of this is our POV. You know what I mean? 1,000 years ago, we would have called these things something else. Even 200 years ago, we would have called them something else. And depending on the place on Earth that you're in, the era in which you're living in, I think that's one of the reasons why we have different names for them. And there clearly is some type of cyclical appearance, right? They seem to pop up and appear either during important human times or, like eras of humanity when like we're in a golden age or whatever, right? Like there's these, I'm not saying that's when they do it, but there's these different ages, right? So they seem to be part of a mechanism of humanity that we just haven't uncovered yet, and that's probably in that gray area of what is consciousness and what is a soul and all this stuff. So I do think that they're one of the same, especially given like recent, I guess I would say like revelations about things like the Kade Ptamen and some of these older kind of prophecies and predictions that have come out from groups, from Rosicrucian groups to Theosophy and whatnot. So that's my opinion, but everyone's entitled to their own idea. What do you think, John?
See, I've been all over the board on it, right? You know, I think it's whatever you want it to believe. Whatever you believe hard enough is what it is. You know, it's weird because are you guys familiar with the concept of a tulpa? Yes. It's a Tibetan concept where it's basically a thought form that you manifest into a real being, a living being, a thought being, a creature. So if you concentrate hard enough on something, you know, and you direct your consciousness to something, you can manifest a being, a physical being that's basically starts as a thought form. So, you know, I've had experiences, you know, and I've done the, you know, human initiated contact, or CE5, if you want to give Greer credit. And, you know, orange balls that come out of the sky that look just like shit that Chris Bledsoe films all the time, right? So is that what I've started to find is the only common denominator is me being there and my intention of doing it. And then you look at the people from, oh shit, I'm gonna get this really wrong, but South America somewhere where they have big groups of people and they've done this for years. Ian Doley hit me to these guys, where, you know, they have massive people and they all, you know, chanting and doing these things and they have direct connection experiences. And, you know, it was like basically what Greer, you know, stole and became CE5. You know, that happens all the time. And it's like, well, what's the common denominator? It's like you trying to make a direct connection to something. So are you connecting to something? Are you manifesting something? Are you creating something from your mind? Are you actually creating reality, manifesting these things because you're the one that's basically the conduit? You're the creator. You're making these things happen. Or are you just turning it on? Are you just like, basically it's always there, but you're just turning on the light bulb? Like, oh, hey, you know, I want to see it. It's there. It's always there, right? But you just got to fucking turn it on. So that's where I'm at. And then we attribute it to whatever the hell you want to. I mean, if you're a monk, then it's an angel. If you're a fucking Luciferian, it's the devil. If you, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, if you like Pokemon, it's Pikachu. Fuck, I don't know, you know?
Yeah. And it definitely plays into those things for people, I think. Something interesting what you were saying was this person named Tracy Twyman. I really like their research. They passed away suspiciously in
murdered.
Murdered. Yep, exactly.
Sorry.
And she was researching a lot of channeling, and actually she researched a lot about Baphomet, which is all in the news again, which I was like, anyways. She said something she found interesting was that, like, one of the most common things amongst quote unquote channeled entities is they want more and more people to believe in it. You know what I mean? So it's almost like on that side of it, they're aware of it too. And I've even heard that people in the government are actually, this is one of their fears or concerns, you could say, for disclosure, is like the powers that be are kind of aware of this like group thing, manifestation thing. That's why they choose what's on the news when it is, or, you know what I mean? But if everyone becomes aware of it, like I heard they're a little freaked out about, like, you know what I mean? Or just like even with remote viewing or something, like what if everyone could remote view overnight and everyone knew about it, or everyone could read each other's mind or something like that?
Yeah, a good friend told me today, who's kind of well connected in all of the things. He said, "What if there's a hurricane off the coast of, you know, Africa, like it always pops out, and it's a level 1, right? But all the news comes out and says, oh shit, this is going to be the mother of all hurricanes. This is the biggest thing in the world. This is going to just wreck everything that's coming at you. This is going to be horrible, right? This is the one for the record books. You got to start getting your shit together now, start getting ready, all of that stuff. Does that hurricane, because all of the people, all that messages that went out to everybody, does that hurricane actually gain force? Does it get big? I mean, it could be just a number 1 that's just going to go away and just dissipate in the ocean. But because of everybody's emotions and thoughts and the amplification and the message, does that thing actually build speed and force and actually destroy?
That's a great question. I mean, yeah, what can feed the energy of something like that? What provides it with the fuel?
And one of the cool things, I'm sorry to cut you off too, but I didn't mean to. But
you're the guest. You're good. You're good.
No. One of the cool things is, like, I went to an Angels and Airwave concert back in like 19 or something, right? It was Tom DeLonge. It was in Detroit in this little fucking club, and there was like 1,000 people there, right? But they played that part, and Red, you know what I'm talking about, where it's like, hey, we've done this. It's like in the middle of the show, it's just like a voice that comes on. It's like, we've done this study. that everybody at concerts, all of their energy and their wavelengths reaches a certain phase where everybody's connected and everybody's connected to music and we're all one and all this stuff. And I was there for that. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And everybody was, nobody's like punching each other, stepping on each other, going, it was just like everybody was there for the experience and everybody was having a great fucking time. And it was like, you could feel the mood. You could feel like that love. And it felt like love, it felt like that whole thing, right? Everybody was on like the same like level and vibe. And I'm like, that exists, right? That is a real thing. Like if you get everybody on that, but the reverse is true. If you get everybody fucking scared all the time and worried about shit all the time and like whatever, then dude, that happens too. So like, I really believe that there's, we as humans are way more fucking more powerful than we give ourselves credit for or even know about, and everybody's trying to control it. And to get back to the Vatican thing, what I took out of it and when I read the English translation of it was, throughout all the years, basically from Fatima on, people would have these experiences, anomalous experiences, and they would attribute them to the Virgin Mary or Jesus or whatever, like that. And it was up to like the local bishops and whoever else to say, through discernment. Discernment was a big, huge word that was used multiple times in this document. But basically, it was up to the local branch of the Vatican to say that this was canonized, that this was an actual event, that this actually happened, and it was an experience. What they're saying now, and this is my interpretation of it, is they're reeling it back in. They're saying, now you just can't say that this shit happened. There's all these steps we have to go through, and it has to go all the way to the top, and we have to go all the way through this and say, yeah. Okay, cool, it happened. Or because if you go through all the 6 steps they outlined, it's like, yeah, it happened, but it's not significant. Yeah, it happened to you. Okay, so it's, but are you delusional? Are you on drugs? Are you whatever? Yeah, it happened to you and your family, but is it because of your belief? And it might be not belief that the Catholic Church believes. So it could have happened, but it's not based on our doctrine. Yeah, it could, yeah, it happened. It was kind of significant. Yeah, it happened. It was very significant, whatever. So they have this whole classification. So it's like, it reminds me of like Close Encounters, the Fifth Kind. It just like outlines the whole thing, right? But basically it pulls all of that into the Vatican because there's people making pilgrimages all over the world for something that happened in 1932 at some grotto in Spain. So there's people that are fucking flooding there and buying vials of water from some fucking spring because the Virgin Mary appeared to some dude there, right? But the Catholic, the Pope and the Vatican didn't say, yeah, that shit happened. They didn't say that. So now they want the rights to say, yeah, that shit happened, right? So in my mind, they're setting it up to where if something happens, something big, something massive, false flag or not, they can come out and say, yeah, that was God, that was Jesus, that was the Virgin Mary, that was something that was real, right? So they can do and then you can go there and give them the money or whatever, to the pilgrimage. But everything else was just ancillary bullshit that happened that they didn't really canonize.
I totally agree.
That's my take on the whole thing, right? So they're just basically doing the money grab and also future-proofing themselves to setting it up to where whatever happens, they can bless it and say, yeah, that was God.
Getting ahead of it, little insurance policy, you know what I mean? Like they can figure out a way to like work it within their narrative.
Yep.
Use the word discernment. This is the first time I ever heard it. I got a question into Theories of Everything interview with Donna Pasolka. Check this out.
This one comes from Tupac Cabra, who has a Twitter account that's link in the description.
I love how you pronounce that. Tupac Cabra.
Have their own.
Who has a Twitter account that's link in the description.
Tupac /practice/training for remote viewing, and if so, church have their own. Does the Catholic Church have their own term /practice/training for remote viewing, and if so, does it predate the U.S. government's and how put-offs programmed?
That's
good
a good
question. That is a good question.
They actually do. And it's not called remote viewing, but it's called discernment. We've talked about people in the Invisible College, a lot of them being Catholics. I don't know if all of them are, but most of them are. One of those people is Jacques Vallée. And when I first met him and throughout my collegial friendship with him, he's said to use your discernment, and this is something that must be developed. Okay, and so that caused me to recognize the term as being from the Catholic tradition. You go back and you look at where this develops, and basically it's this recognition that humans have the ability to see things that you can't, humans in general, some humans have it more than other humans, to be able to see or have information about people or events that you couldn't get in a normal way through the five senses or something like that. And that's called discernment.
Yeah. So they use that term, right? It's because it's a ecclesiastical term as far as it's kind of hard. It's like the Mormons use it in a way that's described as listening to the small, still voice.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Any Mormons in the chat?
Yeah, there should be. There's typically one.
Oh yeah, they have that. And it's interesting to be brought up here too. I'm glad you did, because I'll just throw it
Comes
back up
from
there real
Tupac
quick.
Cabra, who has a Twitter account that's.
I love how he says it, Tupac Cabra.
She, I would say, and I've been calling her a Vatican plant, but I feel like I should say more like Vatican emissary, Vatican cultural exchange. The Vatican has their ties in ufology stuff. Also, oh shoot, it actually might be worth showing people, because I think a lot of people slept on this. But she was given, Diana Pasulka was given access to secret records for specific saints, and one of them dealt with remote viewing. I'm surprised she didn't name the lady, but it was this girl in the 1600s or something like that.
Oh, she did bilocation too.
Yeah,
right.
and by
That's
location.
right.
Yeah.
And then she also had another dude who was flying. So it's I find it interesting that I feel like, well, maybe flying not as much, but the other
He
one
was levitating. He was levitating.
Yeah. Well, I guess that one they're both phenomena related, right? You hear about levitating things in phenomena, and you hear about bilocation type remote viewing, seeing things where you're not. So I just find it interesting that of all the saints, right, that's where she's given access to and allowed to develop more theories on and whatnot. Let me see.
Well, I mean, they have it in their. Listen, if you're trying to protect your money, and you're trying to protect your power or your whatever, right? It's in your best interest to, what'd you say, Tupa, earlier? You got to preload that shit. You got to pregame it, right? You got to preload it.
Yeah.
You gotta set it up to oh yeah, we knew about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's our shit.
These little insurance policies.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're coming from a place of authority, and we shouldn't forget that, right? Yeah. What the church meant to people in general, and
still does. They're still from the large majority of the world.
Well, I mean, if we're talking earlier about genetic memory, I mean, think about what it was like for those hundreds, if not more years, where you couldn't read, you couldn't do anything without the church or the magisterium kind of overseeing it and approving it. And if you had a different idea that had any validity to it, you were murdered. You were murdered in public. They weren't even hiding it. They wouldn't be like, oh, we don't know where Galileo went. We don't know. He just disappeared. They'll be like, yeah, he's in the fucking castle. He's in jail because of heresy. Don't talk this shit. Don't talk about this stuff. You know what I mean? Don't
burn
question
Giordano Bruno right in the fucking square.
Oh,
right?
God.
There he is.
There he is. He's back.
There he is. There he is.
So now we're into the press conference. Sorry.
No. Don't be sorry.
So he's going to cover a lot of what you said. So I think we're going to do it this way. We got this statement, and then we have an official news summary, because this thing wasn't in English. And then we have the UFO question that was asked, which I'm sure, did you see that, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. But
Santu.
Here's the things they said here.
Sono molto coinvolti, anche appassionati, no? Per un fenomeno, e vogliono dichiarare che è soprannaturale, che viene da Dio, che tutti devono crederci, no?
No.
Altri invece sono arrabbiati e vogliono dichiarare che non viene da Dio assolutamente. Questa dichiarazione, come vedete, di soprannaturalità è complessa.
Many problems.
Anche
Many problems.
tanti problemi.
La
La più importante sarebbe una dichiarazione di Niki Lovstad, che indica, come diceva Benedetto XVI, indica che non c'è nulla di contrario alla fede e alla morale, e che è possibile aderire a questo fenomeno in maniera prudente, anche se non si è obbligati a farlo, ma è prudente farlo.
It's like double speak. Go back. Go back.
Yeah.
Go back. Right. It's like, hey, even if one's not obliged to do so, but it's prudent to do so. Yeah. You should probably do it. We need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Prudente farlo. Questa dichiarazione di Nicky Lobstad permette al vescovo di cogliere tutto ciò che può esserci di positivo.
Pause it there. So, Panda, look at this. So basically he's saying the bishop can say everything that's positive is good experience and is good for his faithful, right? So if something happens, like Chris Bledsoe's UFO comes down and heals you of cancer, that's good. That's a good experience, and that's good for your faithful, right? That's good. That's a good thing, right? Because good shit. But then he's going to go into the next part where he's like, we don't know, and if it's bad, then maybe it's not for us.
E di utilizzare questa esperienza buona per il bene dei suoi fedeli.
Oh, that's the end of the clip here.
Basically, yeah, it goes through the whole thing. It's the 6 steps. It's like the nihilist. It's basically goes through the whole thing where it's like, yeah, it's good for you. It's good for us. It's good for you and us. It's good for nobody. Yeah, it might be okay. Yeah, it's just good for you, but we don't even want to touch it. It's like the 6 spears of bullshit.
Yeah. So here was the press summary that the Vatican official press office put out today. There's like the only English thing that we could find at like in the morning.
A new document from the dicastery for the
So this audio is they put this out. I think it's a real person reading it from the church.
Doctrine of the Faith, published on Friday, updated the norms for discerning alleged supernatural phenomena. According to Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, prefect of the dicastery, the new procedure allows for faster decisions while respecting popular devotion. As a rule, the Church's authority will no longer be engaged to officially define the supernatural nature of a phenomenon, a process that can require large amounts of time to thoroughly study an event. Another new norm involves the explicit involvement of the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, which must approve the local bishop's final decision and which has the authority to intervene motu proprio at any time. Many cases in recent decades have involved the former Holy Office, even when individual bishops have expressed themselves. However, the interventions usually remained behind the scenes and were never made public. The dicastery's new explicit involvement also relates to the difficulty in circumscribing phenomena, which in some cases reach national and even global dimensions, meaning that a decision made in one diocese has consequences elsewhere. According to the new norms, the Church will exercise her duties of discernment based on several criteria. These include if signs of divine action can be discerned, if anything contradicts faith or morals, if spiritual fruits are produced, and if the phenomenon holds pastoral value. However, Church authorities will not declare if phenomena are supernatural, but will merely give their consent for the faithful to frequent a site or a visionary.
Isn't that kind of like doing the same thing? Like, we're not going to say it's a supernatural phenomena, but we're going to say if it's okay for you to act like it is one.
Yeah, and one of the things that really stood out to me as a Freemason is if you go back, circumscribe. That's one of the 10, fuck, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. But you're supposed to circumscribe your passions, right? So basically, a circumscribe, if you take a compass, you guys know a compass, you got a point on it, a pencil on it. We all did it in fucking grade school, right? So if you want to circumscribe something, you put, whatever you want to circumscribe in the middle of it, whatever they're saying here, you put a point in the middle of it and you take a pencil on that compass and you draw a line around it. So you circle around it, right? So in Freemason, you're supposed to circumscribe your passions, right? Or what pisses you off or what, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it because I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it out loud. But basically, you take something and you circumscribe it with a compass. You take a compass, which is a Masonic thing, right? The square and compass. The compass is the top.
Oh yeah.
So you take whatever your passions are, or whatever, you put it inside of this boundary within you. It's interesting that they're using that term. I've never heard the Vatican use that term, circumscribing the phenomenon. So they're taking it and they're fucking encircling it in something that they're keeping it in the middle of that nobody can get into.
Difficulty.
Yeah, that's
in circumscribing phenomena, which in some cases reach national and even global dimensions, meaning that a decision made in one diocese has consequences elsewhere.
See, this is
So they're basically trying to ring it in, right?
But the
They're ringing it in.
media and the word could spread out too quickly, and it becomes difficult to encompass.
Yeah, we're trying to bring it in. We're trying to ring it back in. We're trying to bring it back in.
A decision in New Jersey because someone saw whatever, right?
Yeah,
could
because
affect
people in
what's
Spain
happening
are starting to like worship fig leaves because somebody saw Jesus' face in a piece of toast. You know what I mean? Like,
Or like people in Spain are thinking that, you know, God is healing people in North Carolina, but we'll get back to that after.
is one of the biggest fears of a church to have God speak directly to its followers. Like, for me, I feel like the Catholic Church would hate that. They would hate inherently anything that would bring a follower out of their flock, you know, and like if they had a direct line and they didn't feel they had to go to confessional anymore or do these rituals anymore, or could connect on their own through other means. Like, I know that religion's not like some performance that you do, right? There's all other kinds of reasons why people have spirituality, religions, and practices like this. But for the authority of the church and traditionally what it's always been for society and our culture, I feel like they wouldn't want their followers to have direct access because they are making their living on being the middlemen. Am I wrong? Am I wrong there? I don't know.
yeah, I think I mean, Warner and I and John Luke went down this rabbit hole. I don't know how long ago it's been, a couple of years ago, and I think it's sound, and I think it's right, and I think that a lot of the medieval churches and pre-Dionistic churches were built on ley lines, negative magnetic anomaly zones, whatever you want to call them, and they were created to harness consciousness or spiritual awareness or whatever you want to say, right? They were done in a way that when you walked in there, everything was awesome, right? So if that was like the healing power, if that, you know what I mean? Like if that was the manifestation, if you were healed, if you felt amazing, if you went in there, that was cool, right? And those buildings were geometrically shaped. I know, Tupa, you and I talked about this a long time ago, but it was kind of like the Platonic solids, right? It's kind of like that thing, the fractal things, right? If you look at a church window, it looks like a fractal image. It looks like, you know,
absolutely.
Why is this happening, right? Why does this thing look like a fractal? Like, why is this stained glass all weird looking in this fractal shape, right? And it's kind of like it was built to be a beacon for humanity to be healed and be connected and be centered and be together, you know. And because when I believe, in my opinion, that when like-minded people, you know, accumulate together and have like-minded thoughts and prayers, whatever you want to call them, that's amplified, right? And if you did that in a space that also amplified that to the environment, that it just increases it. It's like an amplifier. It's like you plug your guitar into an amplifier and the fucking shit goes louder, right? So like the churches might have been an amplifier, and it could have been, you could have been in there saying, I love hot dogs and whatever the fuck you want, right? But it basically did that. It resonated and it had a frequency and all those things. And there's a lot of people that have been looking into that and science behind all that, to that frequency and the resonance and those spaces. And I think that no matter what happened, it would have worked. And I think that at some point, like we said early on, the church just got into it and was like, we got to keep this going. So what are we going to do? How are we going to keep this going? We got to keep this going, right? And I say this, and maybe it's because I've had, you know, a few whiskeys or whatever, but fuck it. I say shit all the time. But what I think is that early on, the church, there was real fucking magic. There's no way the Catholic Church is as massive as it is and global as it is, if not at one time you didn't walk into one of these spaces and shit happened. Like shit happened to you. You were healed. Somebody was healed. You had an experience. You felt like something fucking magical happened when you were in there. But I think that, like you said, throughout time, it's just this disillusionment, this watered down, like we just gotta fucking, pay the bills, kind of keep it together, because that's what's happening. So when you go to, like, I went to Catholic Mass, it was like a couple months ago, and I said this in a podcast, I think, when I was talking about it, is like, I went for my daughter, who was in Catholic school. Anyway, I went there, and it was like completely different than when I was a kid. There was people like showing up late in flip flops and fucking just walking in, just weird shit that, like, when I was a kid that wouldn't have happened, and then at the end of the whole thing, and I'm going off on a tangent, but the end of the whole Catholic Mass, like, I've known Catholic Mass because you just sit there and you just zone out, a little fucking thing to the end.
Mhm.
But I haven't been there in so long. At the end of it, they did this fucking prayer to the Archangel Michael.
What?
Is that newly added?
Yeah, well, newly added to me. I guess it's been going on for like 4 or 5 years. Catholics in the chat, if you guys know what I'm talking about, seriously, hit it up. At the end of a Catholic Mass, they go like, it was usually like, okay, cool, peace, we're out. But they'd like pray to the Archangel Michael to protect us from the unseen, invisible forces that are fucking attacking us, like all of this shit. There's like this thing where they're just like, Archangel Michael, protect us from the evil, the demons that are around us. They're invisible demons that are around us. Protect us, save us from all this shit. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? I'm like, what has gone wrong so bad in the, the 5-10 years, whatever, that I haven't been, memorizing fucking Catholic Mass, that you got to pray to the Archangel Michael, who's, if you read the Bible's interpretation, is God. Like, the Archangel Michael is God. Right? But he can't harm a human. He bows to the humans, right? He bows to the humans. Like, he's a servant to the humans, but he's as powerful as God. But we're praying to the Archangel Michael at the end of a Catholic Mass to protect us for some unseen demon that's affecting us. And I'm thinking, fuck, is that an alien? Is it a like, what?
Yeah.
What's coming at us? Is it AI? Is it an AI alien? What the fuck? Right?
Well, AI scares the crap out of me because I can't help but think that it might be a type of digital body for a demon or something. Like, you know what I mean? What's happening?
Look, Enigma Seeker in chat is saying it started in 2018. I was like, what relation to 2017 was that decision made? Because even in non-Catholic ufology, you hear that name, the Archangel Michael, like, so much. It's really weird.
So it was 18? Okay, so yeah. All right, so what the fuck happened?
They're all dancing together, dude. They're all dancing. The DOD and the Vatican.
Right.
They're going
so
off
now
each
they have
other
all the what happens, that comes from the Vatican. So like, we're doing that in Ohio. They're doing it in fucking Zimbabwe, wherever the fuck there's a Catholic church, right? And
they all have the same gospel, like, everywhere around the world, right?
So they have to, they send it, the Vatican says you got to do this shit. That's what you're doing. So they're doing that all over the fucking globe. Wherever there's a church, wherever there's a Catholic presence, at the end of their Catholic Mass, they're praying to the Archangel Michael to save them from the invisible demons that are attacking them.
Yeah. And
Did you guys know this is what we're going to get into tonight? I don't know if you.
I was hoping.
No, of course. This
Fingers were
huge.
crossed.
I love this.
Mazel tov.
Another interesting thing is apparently Tim Taylor, who Pasolka talks about all the time, and Tuba, maybe if you want to bring up.
He became Catholic. He wasn't even Catholic.
Yes,
he became
exactly.
Catholic. He went to the Vatican and was like, I'm going to take communion. I'm going to be Catholic.
I think Semivan too, or there's a few people who get into ufology, get deep in ufology, and then become Catholic. It's kind of weird.
I think it's like a cheat code.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's a cheat code to, like, save yourself. Yeah.
There could be something to that.
I mean, how many times have you guys heard that whole thing is like, if you're getting abducted and you call out the name of Jesus, they stop doing it?
That's heavy, dude. And
Tom DeLonge says that. He's like,
a lot of people have said that. Not even Tom DeLonge. A lot of people have said that. And it's like, but is it that Tulpa thing? Is it just like you manifesting, connecting to this? Like, that's a great graphic, right? Is it this fractal energy that just exists around us, and that, like, that's the resonant sound that connects to that? I mean,
know. I like to think that ideas and feelings are aliens and organisms and beings that we don't really know. We don't really understand it, but they kind of take us. The same thing with like as I immerse myself in a creative position a lot throughout every day, a lot more than I know a lot of other people do if they're not doing that kind of work. And like, after a while, you kind of realize you just kind of prepare yourself for ideas to come in. You can't. You can't just manifest them out of nowhere. You can't think through it. You know, it's almost the same as like sitting down with a guitar or an instrument and be like, I'm gonna write a song now.
Nope.
And it's like, no, that's not gonna happen. But it takes a while to kind of figure that out and understand that you just you got to become an antenna for it. And so
perfect segue is that's exactly it, because you look at the people that are what do they call them, like immediate savants or whatever, where you fall down a fucking flight of stairs and you can speak 4 languages.
Yes.
And you can play the piano.
Yeah. Or people who are severely autistic and they can't, they're antisocial.
They can't talk.
And then you give them a piece of clay and they make perfect sculptures of 2-dimensional pictures that they've only seen, as a kid. It's so intense. These drawings and paintings that are like a computer did them.
Yeah. I think that we can all tap into that, and that's what it is, man. I think we can all tap into that, and then it's just really hard because people just have that whole barrier. But I think that's what I think that's a double-edged sword. I really do, because I think that we're here experiencing this thing called life, and we're doing it in a way that's separate from that experience, and we can dump into it from time to time, and we can all tap into it if we want to. But I think that's like what we're here for. I think we're here for that ignorance, the bliss of not having that. I mean, imagine just being able to just whatever you think
so
of.
too.
Yeah, the whim you think of, it just happens. It just gets boring. Just be like dumb and just wandering around as a human. Like, oh, what's going on? That's a cup.
John, I got a question for you. In theosophy, there's at least this idea that humans evolved a higher intellect between like the years 1400 to like 1600, right? That there's this awakening. Something was pushed forward, and that we now have the ability to use our intellect in a way that could almost hurt us, whereas before it wasn't even a thing. But yet we have all these. I think there's subtle proof to that about like what happened after that period of time, from the invention of science and the arts and the getting out of the Dark Ages, and then the ushering in of like the Industrial Revolution and so on, and all that stuff, the Renaissance. But you have and then where we're at now is crazy. The time it took us from the invention of the airplane in the late 1800s to the moon is like 60 years. Or 40 years. That's nuts. That's crazy. So, in that time, like before, we were still inventing things as groups of people. We were still constructing buildings. We were still creating art of some kind. We were still, inventing gadgets and gizmos and societies and ideas and whatnot. And obviously there could have been ebbs and flows of this kind of thing. But, you spoke of like the idiot savants earlier, right? Like, what is your thought, number one, on that concept that we kind of evolved a little bit? Some developed a new kind of intellectual capabilities between those years. And could we relate? Is there any kind of like modern thing that we see as an example of like what human beings and culture might have been like before this awakening in individuals with certain conditions? I mean, I'm just curious.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of full circle back to we were talking about early on when you have the foxes in Russia. You have 7 generations, right, where it's an inherited trait, where it's just inherited and you can't do shit about it. So you have seven generations that it's an inherited trait. If 7 generations ago your grandfather got bit by a spider and it fucking killed him, right, and the whole family was devastated because their whole entire world changed, right? Because now mom has to raise all the kids and do everything that the dad did. That shit's genetically entrained in you, right? So when you see a spider, you just flip the fuck out for no reason, right? You're like, fuck! You don't know why. A spider never did anything to you, right? But you hate fucking spiders, right? That's an inherited trait. So I think that is true. Also, if you think back to when they were burning witches at the stake, how long ago was that? 1600s, 50 in America? What was it? 1700? I don't know.
Probably later than we're comfortable with. I bet.
Right. So you have some people that have gifts and they're psychic and can heal people or whatever, and then that goes against the church. That goes against the doctrine, right? you burn those people at the stake, right? So what do? You just forget that shit, right? You have something that you think that you might know about that's going to happen before it happens. Just no, that shit ain't real. So the inverse is true too, right? So can you breed it out of you? Can you push it out of you? Can you breathe it into you, right? Can you have it happen to you? Yes, all of those things are true. In my mind, it's breaking all of those things because you're not really beholden to them, right? You're not. I mean, you have them, right? So we have those things. Darren. I'm trying to remember his last name right now because
Aronofsky.
No, it was Darren. He was. He was like undercover and he never came out. And I did an interview with him. He was friends with Ian Doley. What the fuck was his name?
While you think of it, Janet Horn was the last person burned at the stake. 1727. That's the last recording.
It's not that long ago.
No, it's not.
No. I think it's Darren King. I could be wrong, but
Darren King. Yeah.
So Darren King and I had this conversation where it's like, if this entity that showed up that looked like a spider, and you're like fucking deathly scared of spiders, what's the first reaction? If this thing shows up and it's a spider, you're just gonna fucking, like that's ingrained in you. You're just gonna fucking kill it. Like just step on it, right? Like, how do you combat that? Like, how do you combat that? Like, genetic built-in response. Like as a human, like, oh fuck, this thing's gonna kill me.
Honestly, you have to. It takes you have to consciously try to overcome it.
And nobody consciously tries to do shit.
Well, I overcame my fear of spiders.
You did? How? How did you do that?
Because eventually I got tired of being really creeped out. I mean, I would kill them, you know what I mean? But I would be real, like, light-wristed about it. You know what I mean? Like, like I would be, but then I was like, one day there was this small spider, and it wasn't particularly menacing. It didn't have pokey legs, the shit that I think is like really creepy. And I realized like I'm bigger than a giant to it. I'm a planet to it, basically. I'm a mountain, and it's this small little thing. Like, how much harm could it really do? So I grabbed it by the web, and it was dangling, and I just let it crawl on my arm.
Oh,
and I just let it. And it was small enough, and I realized like it has to like navigate through my arm hair. Like, that's how big I am. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't fear these things at all. They're probably super afraid of me. And after that, it's like, don't get me wrong. If I saw a spider right in front of my face, I'm freaking out. I'm getting it off. If I saw a spider on me, but I'm not like the panic isn't there anymore, right? Because I realized I was letting myself like reach a panic point because I thought it was appropriate. Yeah. I thought it was like, that's what I should be doing, right? Because this is, but you got to talk yourself through it. It takes this. It's almost like Dune or whatever, right? This idea of like, we have animal instincts to react to things like pain and fear, but our humanness is what determines if we can overcome those animal things, right? The animal parts of us, which is this weird duality that, it's almost like philosophers and even biologists, but it definitely like religions, like they instill in us.
So I think that's what the Vatican's doing. I think the Vatican is saying whatever you are experiencing is unique to you, but it's not necessarily canon or doctrine or whatever, right?
Yep. And if anyone says it is, it's going to be us, not some local regional bishop,
not some bishop of Ohio who thinks
not an American congressman who thinks it's angels. You know what I mean? But here, let's watch this clip. This was the UFO clip.
It's like they were allowing fan fiction for a while, and now they're like, no.
Yeah, they're like,
no
no,
more.
yeah.
This is the canon.
Yeah, this
is what we're doing.
They pulled a Disney. Yeah,
yes,
they pulled a Disney. This is the MCU.
Second question, if I may, because perhaps it will seem like a slightly stranger question. There has been a great deal of media attention on the so-called UFO phenomenon, with prominent authors
Look at everybody's faces.
And scientists.
Dude on the left is giggling his ass off.
University, claiming that UFO encounters are actually spiritual encounters, that some made accounts that speak of celestial apparitions and the like.
Can you pause it real fast? I think the microphone is making the guy in the middle look like a bald Hitler, and it's bugging me out, dude. You need to chill with that microphone.
Symbolism will be there down.
The nun, the dude on the right's checking his text. The dude on the left is giggling his ass off. The nun is looking at her scripture for Jesus. That's what's going on. In my mind,
the dude
right?
on the left is laughing, bro. It's like,
Yeah, he's giggling his ass off. The dude on the right, like, I got shit to do. I got the Pope at 4. I got the vicar at 3. Like,
all right, let's play a little more.
all right, sorry.
Oh no.
Like he's like,
Okay, I don't know what's going on.
Some have suggested in recent days that
Got
this
it.
new document.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna play the one in Italian because this free dub thing did not work. 1 second, let me just.
I like hearing them talking in Italian. I was like, "Hala,
Yeah.
UFO, but like, what the fuck?"
I used to turn the Spanish channel on, and I'd be like, I don't know anything, and they'd be like, Toyota. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's a little cleaner, and that's a little clearer too. I guess it downgrades it when you do that free.
Oh, here we go.
Looks even more like Hitler. Sorry.
He does. He does. Here we go.
C'è stata una grande attenzione da parte dei media sul cosiddetto fenomeno UFO, con autori
That guy just started taking notes.
scienziati di spicco in luoghi come l'Università di Stanford che hanno affermato che gli incontri UFO sono in realtà incontri spirituali. Che alcuni resoconti
Look at that guy laughing.
con alcuni resoconti che parlano di apparizioni
The lady's laughing too. That nun is laughing. Yeah. That dude's texting his ass off. He's like, I'm making notes. The Pope said no.
Anche per la valutazione di queste esperienze, Sua Eminenza può confermare che è così o non
They've never heard of such a thing.
Yes, they have. Because look at, they're all smiling and laughing. Look at the guy on the right, on the left. He's like, yeah. He's like, oh. He's like, oh, yeah.
Possiamo intervenire, no? E potrebbe accadere che un certo fenomeno di questo tipo sia collegato a un fenomeno religioso cristiano, no? Cattolico. In quel caso si vedrà, ma
We will see.
altrimenti no. Questo potrebbe accadere anche in altre religioni, non è compito nostro, no? E fuori dalla fede meno ancora, certamente.
Oh, there we go. So kind of a weird answer, huh? They're all smirking. They're all acting like... Okay, I'm not trying to be hating on anyone's religion, right? But like, how are you going to be laughing at UFOs when you're like such a faith-based ideology, right? Like, I feel like there's a lot more evidence for UFOs than maybe some of the things that they probably believe. You know what I mean?
Dude.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I was raised Catholic, and I'd still probably baptize my kids and whatnot. I don't know what the hell I am these days, but
yeah. I mean, shit. They got to know something way more than well, I don't know, man. There's so many layers of shit that's happening. I'm like, they had like this dude legit picked up a piece of paper because he knew this question was coming. Like, he didn't make this shit up. If you go back to the beginning when this chick is asking this, he reached into the pile of shit and picked up the response to this question.
Good eye.
Good eye, John. Got him. Uh-oh. Lana. Where we at?
Oh, that was word 990.
Nowadays I'm all about the fatty. You better get some. Too busy hating, ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. Ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. Yeah, they ain't ready for.
There it is. Thank you, Lana.
I was grooving to that shit.
Isn't that it's a cut, dude?
Mm-hmm.
That's John Bell's.
I love it. Yeah, that dude picked up that shit like he was like, okay, where's the UFO question? Hold on a minute. Let me dig through this shit right here. Oh, there it is.
And his answer was what? Like, we're not specialists in that, but is it
play
possible
back.
that that
Play
they
it back.
could
I'm
be-
gonna read it. Can I read the subtitles? Here we go.
Yeah, I'll turn down the volume a little bit too.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
So
I
this
love
is what he did. I'm gonna try to say it in a weak ass Italian accent. It's gonna sound terrible.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Just document status for the evaluation of these. Experience on the eminence of him. Can you confirm this is the case or is it not? He's like, that dude on the left is like, oh, hey.
He's stretching.
Hey. We are not. We really can't intervene. No. It could happen that a certain phenomenon of this type is connected to a Christian religious phenomenon. Catholic, in that case, we will see. But otherwise, not. This could happen in other religions too. It's not our job, no. And not order of faith or lesser, certainly. And
Oh, there we go.
I think that's well done. I was glad it sounded. I got way more when you read it out.
Okay.
So
basically, it's like it's not our job to. We don't know about this. We don't know, and it's not our religion. It could be our religion, and it could be not. It could be somebody else's shit, but we can't say.
But they definitely have more information on this than any other religion probably on earth, right? Because of just their database.
Their database is wicked,
right? So
wicked huge.
Do you think this guy talking has access to the Vatican archives?
This dude is reading. Look at the fucking note he's got. Somebody
Yeah.
told him to pick that note. This is note
He's
42.
a PR guy, right? I bet the guy on the phone texted him and told him to do that. That's what he was doing on the far
The
right.
dude on his right, which is our left, when he got the question, giggled his ass off and went like this.
Yeah. And he was like covering his mouth when he was.
Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, this is it. This is the UFO question." Yeah, I knew we'd have to get it. And this dude had to read it straight face, like, "Oh yeah, we don't know about this religion and you whatever." Yeah, that's what's happening, right? And they were like, "Oh, we dodged that one. Fuck." Yep. So this is me being a dick, but the Vatican for a billion years went to a bunch of pagans that were worshiping a tree in the middle of the woods in Germany and whatever. And we're like, hey, you're going to love Jesus or we're going to kill all of you. And they're like, cool. And they killed all of them. And they did that forever. And then they took all their shit and they put it in their basement. And then they just kept doing it. And then they met some resistance from a lot of people that were like, yeah, we're not going to fucking play that game. And they fought them. And they're like, shit. Okay, we're going to take your festival and make it Easter. Like, fuck. Okay, all right. And then we're just gonna, because then they're like, all right, well, I guess we'll play with Easter. And then they would just go, and they just kept hoarding shit and bringing it in and just like throwing it in the basement. And then they had dudes that were like celibate for their whole lives and like, I'm just gonna sit in the basement and read all these books and just come up with a chronology of all this shit. And that's what's happened, and nobody's seen it.
Do we know who is like tasked with that at all? Like, what's that order called?
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah.
I mean, these guys.
Basalka had it in her book. It's the Summon and whatever Vinici, whatever. There's like a whole group of people. That's all they do is like tend to the Vatican archive. That's all they do. They don't leave the fucking basement. They're like down there doing shit. Can you imagine? Like, oh yeah.
They have to have their own timeline. They have to have an entirely different. Do you know what I mean? Because there's probably some really. I mean, I wonder too how much they can paint out some of the lines and theorize. Like, hey, listen.
No, they can't. They can't publish that shit. They can't do any of that shit.
No,
the biggest thing
just
with
amongst themselves. Like,
oh,
could they theorize stuff like
they take vows of fucking not celibacy, but they can't speak. A brother of mine who was
total silence.
Franciscan monk didn't speak for fucking 5 years or something.
Oh my god!
5 years he didn't say a word. 5 years. Right? So like these people don't say anything. That's fucked up.
And
like,
they're just
you imagine
writing and then sending it out, documenting, sending it out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So like that's what's going on. There's that level of fuckery. I mean, if you think about it, that's fucking amazing. Like, how do you find somebody who doesn't speak at all, who's completely devoted to this thing that they're doing, and they're doing it every day forever, not speaking and just...
And do you think it gets tucked away and never looked at, or do you think there's people out there who then take those documents so they're not in the archives? They're just looking at like the, you know what I mean, the glossary or whatever, and they're like, okay, I can now make determinations of like what happened, when it happened, where it happened, why it happened, and not just with UFO, you know, like investigations or paranormal events, but literally just a chronology of world events.
Oh,
It can't be what we're told.
No, so this is fuck up. So this is in my book too. That I really dug deep and found this shit was that, you know, the Templars are burned in I always fuck this date up. It's like 1316 or 1313, something 1316 or something like that. They were burned at the stake, right? It was Friday the 13th. You know, that's why Friday the 13th was the big deal. They gathered up all the Knights Templar Freemasons and they burned them at the stake for heresy. But what they did is they gathered up all of them and they had like an inquisition where they had all the papal decrees. They had all the people in the Vatican came to them and interviewed them all, and they documented everything they said, and like all the Knights Templar, like, what were you doing? What did you say? Were you worshiping, you know, Satan? Did you whatever? And that report that came out was like a year after everybody was arrested, that said they did nothing wrong. They did not do anything that was against the church. They did not do any there was no heresy. There was no any of this shit. And we declare it was like a papal, commission to go like figure all this shit out. And all of these dudes wrote like, yeah, they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything, whatever. We found all of the evidence and we've interviewed all of the shit, and that what they're saying is true. And that shit was buried until I want to say like 2015 or 16 in the Vatican. So like the Vatican had that shit. They got it. The Pope got that. All the reports from them that said like these guys did nothing wrong, and the Pope was still like burn them.
That's too much power. That's crazy.
And that's true. Crazy. You can look that up. That is fucking true. You can look it up. They it had like a year or 2 years after Jacques de Molay, everybody was arrested and put on trial and all that shit. The official Pope's people that came back to do the response said they didn't do anything at all that was heresy. They shouldn't be indicted. They shouldn't be held captive, whatever. They buried that shit in the Vatican archive and they burned everybody.
That is dark.
Wasn't it related to Baphomet too? That whole saga?
Nah.
Or at least they were accused of it.
Yeah, it wasn't accused of Baphomet. They were accused of worshiping the head of St. John the Baptist.
Mm.
But that's not what they were. That's not what they were worshiping. It's a misnomer. That whole thing that's a giant fucking aside. But
well, I think today's statement was related to ufology in a way, even though people say it's cope. They did I think the sentiment of the buck stops here, it goes through us. I think it directly applies to this. Chris Bledsoe, some would say an American prophet. Definitely, this is what I always say. There's a million experiencers. Tupa has seen the lady, quote unquote, right? But
Tupa, you saw the lady?
Yeah.
At your house?
Yeah, it was a weird thing. So I've never seen a UFO or anything, but when I was a little kid, I'd say 6 or 7, I woke up in the middle of the night and there was this glowing woman, exactly as Bledsoe painted her, except she was unless she was right up next to me, I don't think she'd be that big. But blonde, Caucasian, white robe, glowing blue-green. And I noticed there was something in my room, but I thought the light was on or something. And then I looked at the foot of my bed and there was this woman. And so, again, I didn't know what was happening, and I'm a little kid and I have no frame of reference, but there's a woman floating in the room and she's staring dead at me. So I always thought like ghosts would like just kind of walk by and they wouldn't even notice you, but that's not what was happening. I was being stared at pretty intently, and she had one hand aimed up at the sky, and then one hand was down, and I tried to do
as
like
above, so below.
Dude, I tried to do like a. So the weird thing is, as a kid and forever, I just thought that she was saying there was something in the attic. So I never went up there.
There's
And I
something in the
remember
attic down there.
that's what I thought. I was like, oh, there must be some kind of like thing up there, dude. You know, a treasure chest or a box or
Treasure
hidden
map.
evidence. Dude, I didn't know.
It's like Goonies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So
And then all-
she just wouldn't stop staring and never blinked. It was very severe. The look, it was very like, you know, no bullshit. And so I freaked out, threw the blankets over my eyes, cried myself to sleep. I remember praying, and
That's what happened, and she went away.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think because I wasn't raised religious. I just prayed to God. I didn't have any prayers saved up. I didn't know anything. I just threw the blanket over my head, and was like, "Yo,
God, help
please,
me out.
Yeah,
Please
God
get
help
this
me.
fucking- yeah.
Get this thing out of here. I don't know. I don't want to see this. This is horrifying."
Yep.
And then I woke up. I tried to shake it off like it didn't happen. But when I walked past the area that it did, like I knew it, and I couldn't. I decided,
You
like,
get the spidey sense. You're
yeah,
like,
yeah. And I was like, I'm never going to tell anybody about this because this is crazy. And like, I thought my family would think I was nuts and I would get taken away. Like, I was really paranoid about it, so I never said nothing until like I moved out of the house in middle school, and I told my mom about it, and she was like, "Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" And I was like, because it was terrifying. And then she explained she had some experiences too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But the weird twist in the story for me is that like later on in school, because afterwards I developed like a really weird sense or fear, like a fear, you know what I mean? Like a fear of spiders, right? So now when I go into a dark space or when I open my eyes after like having closed them, I don't know what's going to be there when I open it. You know, because that was the vibe. That was how I was like. It was pretty intense, and so I would watch these shows like Unsolved Mysteries and like sightings and shit.
Scares the shit out of you.
Yes, but also to get some information about what's going on. And the '90s were great for that. And
that was the pre-internet days.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
and my mom was pretty cool. You know what I mean? And there were no studies about like what kids shouldn't watch. So I was in like second and third grade, like watching sightings at 10 p.m. Like
there was no side. Like, dude, we watched all kinds of shit. There was no
TV rating. 14. No,
ratings didn't exist.
Watch whatever
I was
we
watching
wanted.
Rambo at like 5,
just scaring the shit out of ourselves, right? So I ended up seeing my class like out of nowhere, having no preparation for it. My classmate shows up on sightings with her mom and her dad and her sister, and they're describing that this girl who's in my class, my age, had seen a woman in a room, and then she drew the woman, the girl did, for the show, and then they look, and it's Bledsoe's lady.
Oh, fuck.
And I'm like, I've seen that woman, so I'm freaking out, right? So then she also describes this weird shadowy guy that was creeping behind the doors, and I swear to like
St. Michael.
Yeah, so I don't who knows, right? But like a weird thing, there's this weird like positive negative element to it. Anyway, so I see her in class and she like clams up. She's super shy. She doesn't want to talk about it. We never talk about it ever. You know what I mean?
You still never talked about it? You were hooked up with her?
No. Well, tragically, in high school, she went missing, and she ended up getting murdered by her boyfriend. And so it was a whole thing, dude. And her dad was how I knew her dad was that he was the officer who taught us DARE in grade school. So we've known him forever, dude. And
that's so fucking wild and weird.
Let's show John this, dude. This was cool too, although it's gonna be weird. But
2 apparitions, a woman touched.
Show within a show.
I love it.
Americans claims to
There
have
it is.
been in the presence of a ghost.
This is the actual episode of sightings that
Oh, here it is.
when I was in 2nd grade and saw my classmate.
In 1985, the Brown family purchased this Victorian-era home in Portland, Oregon. No one could dismiss what daughter Cassie saw. 2 apparitions, a woman tucking
Look at
Cassie's
that.
blankets into the bed.
Does it let you pause? I don't think.
It might go to it later on in the cut, but I'm not sure.
Working in the background.
The guy standing by the door
I went to school the next day because, again, the only person I knew in the world who had seen anything like what I'd seen, and her drawing of it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It looks
So,
just
dude,
like
you
Lady,
got to look
bro.
and see if you were in a negative anomaly zone.
Well, we're in the same kind of area, the same like square, maybe 2 mile, like for
Yeah,
sure.
look
So
that shit on the map. Yeah, like that shit happens. I had
my hood would be really pumped to find out that we were in a northwest paranormal zone.
Yeah, dude, I had her come to me and hand me a sword.
No way.
And I didn't take it.
When was
And
this? You got to tell us this. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to hear all about this, dude.
This was 17, 18, something like that. She came to me and was like, here, you have to do this. And I'm like, nah, I'm not doing it again. And she had 2 guys with her. It's like hooded, dark robe guys that were like behind her, right? Like basically it was like the bodyguard vibe. Like, hey, these are the guys. And she's like, you have to do this again. And I'm like, I'm not doing it again. And she's
Again?
Like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not doing it again. And she's like, you have to do it again. And I'm like, no. And these dudes stepped up and I'm like, I'm not doing it again. I'm not, and I turned around and it was like pain and snap back to reality.
Wow. And you remember pretty vividly, and you were awake for this, right? Like, was it at nighttime though, or?
Yeah.
That's when Tupa's was too. It makes sense.
Yeah, it was like it was just like drifting off, like, but it was like happening, right? It was happening, like, and I'm like, it was like I went to her and she's like, you have to do this again, and it was just like all these flashes back, and it was like desert and sand and wars and blood and fighting and death, and I'm like,
man.
I'm not doing it again. That's what I'm like, I'm just not doing it again,
dude.
And then I started finding people that had experiences with the lady, John Luke and other people, like other people that I
John
found.
Luke did too. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, but it was hard, dude. It was like, it was rough.
It was heavy, but heavy experience.
Yeah, it was. It's still, when I talk about it, still fucks me up a little bit, because it was like,
Takes you back there.
It's not an easy thing to talk about, because people think you're fucking stupid or weird or like whatever happened, but like that happened. Like, and I didn't. She came, and here's the thing: that she came to me from the northeast. She always, like, whatever's coming is coming from the northeast. It's always coming that way. All of the experiences I've had with UFOs and shit in the sky and whatever, it's all coming from the northeast.
Really? Now, do you think the sword is symbolic for something? Like,
oh yeah, it wasn't a weapon that I had to pick up,
right,
and
right,
do something with. It was a symbol of aggression or
masculinity, maybe like the patriarchy. I'm just saying this because of what I hear from Bledsoe about the lady, that she's ushering in, right, the divine feminine.
Right. Yeah. And it was definitely that. It was definitely the patriarchy protecting the matriarchy, or the ushering in the matriarchy, or you know what I mean. It was basically like, do it again, and I'm like, I'm not doing it again. Do
you think it was a test?
No. And the reason I say that is because when I don't know, it's just fucking even more weird, but when I became a Freemason, you go through these things during the ceremony, and it's a call and response, where it's like you have somebody prompting you, right? So it's like you're not supposed to be talking. Your guide is like, there's people asking you questions, and your guide is responding for you as if it was you. But I was responding. And I didn't know I wasn't supposed to, because nobody fucking told me I wasn't supposed to, right? And I got to the end. I got to the end of it, and like I had all this stuff, and they're like, "Hey, did your grandfather, your father, like all the?" I'm like, "Nobody's been a Mason in my life," and they're like, "How did you know all this stuff is on the internet?" I'm like, "I didn't know I wasn't supposed to fucking respond." And they're like, "Okay." So, like, when I got to the end of it, I felt like I was home. which is fucking weird. Like I'd always been there, but I just came back, right? Which is even more wild to say out loud. But like I felt like I'd been through this shit before. I'd done this before. Like and I felt like I was home. Like I felt like that shit when you go home to your grandma's house, your mom's house, and you just jump on the couch and you're like home and comfortable.
Yeah.
That's how I felt in a Masonic lodge, right? And everybody was looking at me, and I was like, okay. They weren't judging me; they were being cool with it, but they were just thinking like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Cool, I'm glad I'm back." And that was wild, right? So like like that whole experience with the lady kind of felt like that because it was around this same kind of time, like a little bit after that, right? So it was kind of I was like, what the fuck is going on, right?
Wow.
So that kind of, started with this whole, because like when I found out that Bledsoe had that experience with that, and then I found all these other people, I'm like, well, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Right?
I feel you.
I mean, 3 points real quick I wanted to make. So one, there's a cult, and we'll even watch it with, but I've heard of multiple people who, there's basically a cult within the ufology movement that's obsessed with the lady and obsessed with people who see the end of the world. So just FYI, if you have both of those and you speak out publicly, weird stuff, you might start getting contacted by weird people, not even kidding. Second point is, then it ties back into the Vatican stuff. So they did this in 78, and they did it also around the Fatima apparition, right? These statements they did. But the TTSA press conference was on the 100-year anniversary of the third Fatima apparition.
Of course, like do all of that shit is
exactly. Like, so it shows you where their mentality is, right? That's not on accident. Also, like I saw John Luke pointed out, the current alleged date of Lou's book is on the Feast of Hathor, which is basically
Yep.
Should have never gave you money.
Yeah, so like and again, I want to reiterate too, I'm not saying believe this by any means, but a lot of people within the disclosure movement, this story, the Chris Bledsoe story, which in my opinion has a quote unquote Marian apparition, is like there front and center. And here we get really meta. Here's Jim Semivan on Engaging the Phenomenon, James Iandoli's podcast.
That's it.
Talking about the lady and the Intel's community obsession with her.
Went through.
We're in the CIA shirt.
And I believe every word he tells me about this. And not only do I believe every word he tells me, he attracted the attention of a lot of people. EIA, NASA, CIA.
Jesuits.
Other agencies. Everybody wanted to get close to him. Everybody wanted to know as much as information as they possibly can, because his experience it took in not only the classic abduction scenario, because he had missing time, right, where he had no idea what was going on, right, but he also met the entities themselves, and he also met the lady.
Yeah.
And not many people meet the lady.
I love James just wearing the fucking Tommy Gauchi shirt.
And the lady is an element in all of this that really hasn't been explored very much. I will tell you that in some circles it's taken very, very seriously, but it hasn't been explored. The Catholic Church looked at it, because a lot of the sightings, Medjugorje, Fatima, Lourdes, they were all the lady appeared. None of the children that saw any of this ever claimed it was the Virgin Mary. It was just the lady. It was just a lady who showed up.
Right.
And I doubt the Virgin Mary had blonde hair and blue eyes. She was Semitic. So, and of course, the lady would lie, and the lady, would scare the living hell out of them, and, fire and brimstone sometimes lovely messages. A typical abduction scenario where...
So there's the interesting stuff about the lady, right? It shows you where a lot of the people on this screen, where their mind is at when it comes to this entity, the lady. Why they find it so fascinating, why I feel like Chris Bledsoe gets pushed, and honestly, why I feel like, and you heard him say it there, I didn't even remember this. It's double relevant. He says the Vatican looked into the lady claims from Chris Bledsoe.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and so I think it all ties into this statement today of like maybe it's not so much of a like the buck stops here, but it's like don't forget about me, intel
Ooh.
agencies and all these people around the world trying to do disclosure with supernatural. You have multiple congressmen, not just one. You have Luna, Burchett, Burleson, all saying and all pushing this UFO disclosure thing, while also saying some of these UFOs might be angels and demons. So I personally read this as the cat because I think, yeah, that's where my thought is with this whole thing.
Oh, you're right on, Panda.
Yeah.
No, you nailed it, man. Like, how do you shape a narrative to people that are not religious, that are religious, that are super religious, super not religious? How do you like bundle all that up into a narrative that coalesces into something that's manageable? Right? You can't. I mean, you can try. You can. What was Barnum and Bailey's thing? Is like you can fool people all the time or most of the time, but you can't fool people all the time. Like we've gotten to a point in society where nobody believes anything anymore. Like, it's like, what do you believe? You don't take authority for any type of rational, information. You don't take even your religion for any type of rational information. You only go back to something that you're built on what we were talking about earlier, your gut reaction, right? Like if something came out of the sky and you're religious, are you going to automatically assume it's an angel? Are you going to attribute it to Jesus? And if you don't, you have the Vatican on the backside telling you that's kosher. That's what that is, right? Or they're telling you it's not, right? They're telling you that's not it. That's not what that is. So you have these like compartmentalizations still, right? Between reality, what you assume is reality, what the religion assumes is reality, what science thinks is reality. And I think DeLong, for the entire time, I gave a lecture last weekend. I'm giving one tomorrow too. My UFO lecture I did a couple of years ago, right? And I've updated it, like UFO lecture for Freemasons, right? So I get a bunch of Freemasons together and I go from the 30s until now, right? For ufology. And every time I do it, I got guys that are just standing there after I stop recording that tell me fucking shit that you guys wouldn't even believe. And because they didn't think they had the right, or they didn't think they were allowed to speak these things in public, right? It took me to get up there and say and I'm a Freemason and a brother of theirs, and they can tell me whatever the hell they want to tell me, and I'm not going to tell it to anybody. But until I said these things, so that tells you how the Condon report, like all of those things worked, right? That all of the psychological operations they've done to us since the 40s and 50s have worked against these guys. Some of these guys are in their 80s. Some of these guys are in their 60s. Some of these guys, are older than that. And they're like, yeah, I didn't think I was allowed to talk about it. Yeah, this happened. Yeah, I was in the service. Yeah, I saw this. Yeah, this happened. And it's like therapy for them to be able to say that, which is cool, right? Yeah. It was cool for me to be able to like, awesome, tell me that. And it's good for them because they're like, fuck, I didn't think I was going to tell anybody this because I thought that I'd be ostracized and put in the loony bin, and it's like, fuck. So that's worked for all these years. So when you put that in perspective, it's like, who's doing it? Like, it's the government, it's the religions, it's us. We're doing it to ourselves too. Like, we're policing ourselves on a point where it's detrimental. But I think now, like that, like you said earlier, the veil has been broken. Like, people are like starting to say things, people are starting to do things. But the people were grown up, like past my generation, 2 generations, they're still indoctrinated in you don't say shit. This is what happened. This is national security. This is what's going on. Like, that still exists. But once they have the information or the education to like be able to express that, it's like a billion loads come off their shoulder, and they're like, yeah, I experienced some shit. Yeah, I was there when some shit happened. I had a guy that told me that his grandfather told him that he was there at Wright Field when it was still the Army airfield in 1947 when shit came in from Roswell.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, my grandfather always told me that we were there and we had all these boxes came in. We didn't know what it was. It was all this weird fucking metal and all this stuff. We didn't know what to do with it. And then the coroner came in, these bodies, and we didn't know what the fucking, like, this guy told me this stuff. And this guy was like 80. Like, what the fuck? He's not going to like bullshit me, you know?
Gotta get that on tape.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But like, that should happen. Like, and he was like, I wasn't allowed to tell anybody, and I thought it was bullshit, and everybody ever told me that it was wrong, you know? So it's worked. Whatever they've done, the PSYOP has worked, right? So...
Well, hey, we are. I feel like we're probably going to close out soon. Tuba, I see you have that video down there. I think we're pretty much done on the Vatican thing. I want to hear John's take on this Lou statement from this week. I'm still like on it. I feel like we're on Lou watch ever since he put it out, right?
We need a bumper for Lou watch. We'll get there.
Oh, here we go.
Let me see.
Who's reading this?
The lie detector test determined that was a lie.
So, did you see this, John? I'll read it.
No, I see it. Yeah, I've seen it.
To add insult to injury, I was notified yesterday that there may be a personal threat against myself and several other whistleblowers formerly associated with the UAP effort for the U.S. government. As such, I would like to make this perfectly clear to the American people. I am not prone to accidents. I am not suicidal. I am not abusing drugs. I am not engaged in any illicit activities. I just noticed that's the only one that's not emphasized. If something happens to me or my family members in the future, you will know what happened. That one's emphasized. Or exclamation point. Yeah, sorry.
So, let's look at the timing.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Greenwald just came out with something. I mean, how many people have like just been recently coming out like nobody says that he's been connected to ATP, LSAP, blah, 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 blah.
Arrow report,
like all this
Kirkpatrick
stuff.
interviews.
Kirkpatrick just came out and was like, no. Kirkpatrick came out and just told Green Street that they had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
So there's two possibilities. Kirkpatrick is lying, or he's not. The one is Kirkpatrick is lying, and Lou is scared for his life. The other one is Kirkpatrick is telling the truth, and Lou is trying to generate sympathy or false attribution to past claims. I don't know. He could be right. I mean, I didn't say shit for years because people would show up in vans. I'm not bullshitting you. Would just if you had a UFO video that was legit and you put that out somewhere back in the 90s or early 2000s, somebody would show up and be like, "Give me that shit," and shut the fuck up or make you disappear. Like that happened. People fucking died. People fell off of fucking rooftops.
Amy Eskridge, and actually, I don't know if you saw this, Tupa. Frank Milburn, who knows Amy Eskridge, the anti-gravity scientist who passed away in Huntsville, who claimed she was getting psychotronically attacked, and who her boyfriend at the time, Mark, has corroborated that he felt like something weird was going on during that time period.
Spoke to Mark about that, yeah.
Yeah. With some kind of weird EMF or something. But he quote tweeted this quote and said, "I heard this exact same thing from Amy Eskridge many times before she died." So
these words? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I've said this on a couple podcasts, but I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it loud, and I don't give a fuck. But when I was heavy into all this shit, early on, I got psychically attacked by a voice-to-skull technology that was in that dude's voice that came to my head that said, either you're with us or you're against us. And, you know, I was like, fuck you. You know who I am. You know where I'm at. You know where I live. If you're going to be a bitch and use this shit, you're dumb. Come to me and say it to my face. Fuck you. And then I put up blocks, walls, and attacked back, right? Never since then, I've been on the shit list. Like, none of my YouTube videos get promoted. None of the shit that I tweet gets put out. Like, none of that shit, right? Like, all of that shit. And that literally happened. And I've talked to a couple people that are predominant. Like, there's a couple people that are pretty big in the UFO field that have had that same thing happen to them, right? That same fucking thing happened.
No way. So you've told me this before behind the scenes, and I've always found it super fascinating. Thank you for sharing it publicly. I didn't know you did it on your show too. But they said the same thing. Was it the same voice?
Yeah.
What the hell? Prominent that we would know the names of.
You would know the names of them.
Wow. So just to be clear for the audience, John shared with us that he feels like he was hit with voice to skull technology with a voice that sounded like Lou Elizondo, basically saying play ball or else. And that you spoke with multiple other people within the UFO community movement that people would know that are credible, right?
Yes.
They want to be like,
yes.
And they said they had the same thing happen with the same
thing.
voice.
Yep. And they're so fucked up, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it publicly. Because I'm trying to get them together and be like, let's just talk about it. And they're like, no.
Right? Because people won't even, and the fact that it even has Lou's voice, people are going to, and I just got to ask, were you sober when this happened?
Relatively sober.
Enough for me.
I was actually getting out of the shower. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was relatively sober, but I think water amplifies this effect. Believe it or not. I think that water has an effect on it. But yeah, I think that it does. And I was enraged. So, I was enraged. And I don't know if that was part of the deal to make me that mad, but yeah, I was at that point, I'm like, well, fuck you. And honestly, I was like, cool, if you're going to go to this extent, come to my fucking house. If you're going to just come to my house and sit down and talk to me.
He said, roll up.
Yeah, roll up. Let's do it. If you're going to do that, you're a bitch. Basically, I just started going down all the road, you're a bitch. Fuck you. You suck. If you're going to do that, just basically just trying to chop back at him, bam, 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 bam. You can't do this to me. I'm stronger than this. I'm more powerful than this. You have no effect on me here. Try to protect myself in the shield.
But you got to pull up the Danny Jones clip, bro.
What's that? Danny Jones had this experience?
Stuff.
Danny Jones interviewed Len Baer and Robert Duncan on his show a couple years ago, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I know all about it. They've been doing that shit for years. But here's the shitty part. It's satellite-based now. Nobody knows that. It's fucking satellite-based. So they don't have to be on a van in near your house, right?
It sounds like they can do these sweeps, too.
Yeah.
If they're looking, we're going to sweep the neighborhood. You know what I mean? We're going to see who bounces back the right signal that we need. Now we know we can basically manually adjust 13 people's dopamine levels. So we're going to do these dopamine dumps. Boom, 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 boom. Now they're all fucking out of whack. They don't know what's going on. Now we're going to hit them with stress dumps. We're going to see who's responding well with that. Okay, we know that these guys are as vulnerable as they need to be to try this. Let's try it. Now they're fucking with their internet. Now they're doing these real life things that require a little bit more tact, where it's we got to have the information. We're going to turn this off now. We're going to make this happen then. We're going to...
Somebody's going to run up and put a fucking caterpillar on your front door.
Well, I think it's even down to the kind of internet that you get to see.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? The kinds of ads that pop up. I bet you some ads aren't even for real companies, or they're co-opted by real companies. Because, there's all this study about languages that you could put into ads and into things that make people think of mortality or life, and then it primes them for manipulation on a mass scale. And this was back in the day they were doing this, right? So the idea of having those studies in the hands of people who can manipulate your internet search or your experience online, they own you at that point.
Yeah, man. I do information security for a living, right? So I know how that all works. I know the spectrums, and I know how they can get into everything. And it's pervasive, right? It's not even, it's trivial. It's trivial, right? So they can do it on a specific level.
How long was the duration of the Voice to School episode? Like, how long were you hearing his voice?
I'd say max 2 minutes.
2 minutes. And was there anything happening in your life or any public statements you had made about the UFO phenomenon before that you think triggered it?
Probably.
Was it when you just started hanging out with John Warner?
Probably. Probably. Yeah, probably.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably. Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of fucked up because people are like, people are like, dude, you're just delusional, or like, you're in a fantasy world or whatever. But
I don't know,
dude.
Derek says any popcorn-like sounds. I don't know if that's something people hear.
No, it was just straight. Hey, are you with us, or are you against us?
Oh, that's what I want to say too. If you could ask the people who told you if they'd be comfortable with me, if them telling me to, just for my own thing, I won't.
Oh yeah, for sure. If anybody wants to, tell Red.
Because that's crazy that multiple people. Because when I heard it, I mean, I believe you. I mean, I believe that.
I believe you.
I don't know if Lou's behind it or anything.
No, yeah, and I don't know. And I'm not attributing it to Lou.
You don't lie about stuff like that.
No, and I'm not attributing it to Lou. I don't know if he was behind it. I don't know, like somebody could be manipulating his, like a fuck.
Well, that's what Len Bear was talking about. He said that his aunt, his cousin, his mom, his dad, they all are the voices that he's hearing, and they're speaking about his life choices in a derogatory way.
Right.
And he said the only way that could happen is AI. The AI clone their voice.
Right.
And then now that's what's happening.
Yeah, and that's completely plausible. Completely plausible, right? No, 100%. I'm not attributing it to him at all. Without that.
But the fact that it was his voice, John, that is so
And
eerie.
other people have heard his voice.
Yes. And I can tell you offline. I just don't want to out people without.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially with something like this and this community.
Yeah,
after a statement like this.
Yeah. I don't want to like fucking just start dropping it, because. Yeah, it's kind of rough, And you know what's fucked up is that when I reach out to these people and I told them about it, they're like, yeah. And about Voice of Skull, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I know, because they're on the same page I am. Like, I don't know if it was him. I don't know if I want to come out with it saying it's him, because then I don't know if it's like a fucking thing to like put something against him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like a setup, right? Like, and I'm like, cool, but at least I know that that we had the same experience, and I'm not fucking delusional. And they're like, yeah, cool, thanks, me too, but. Now, what do I do with this shit?
Yeah. Bro.
Wow.
And that was like 2-3 years ago. Right? So since I put up the wall, I've been basically deplatformed. Like, I don't show up in searches. Like, nobody can find my shit. Nobody can find UFOs on a level. I Google UFOs on a level and I don't show up, right? That's in my channel. That's me. Jon Majerowski, UFOs on a level doesn't show up on Google searches. Like, basically that shit's just gone. So I know, like, I don't give a shit. I swear, like, every dollar that I've ever made, and I've made like $187 this whole entire time, I give to the Shrine Hospital for Children.
Oh.
That fucking, there's 22 hospitals in the United States, Canada, and Mexico that any kid from the time they're born until they're 18, they walk in, they get completely free treatment. Shrine Hospital for Kids, because I'm a Shriner, and like I believe in that shit. Burns, like osteo stuff, anything, cleft lip, palates, like any of that, kids are completely paid for, right? So that's what I do. I spend my majority of my time trying to raise money for kids that are in need, and that's what I do. Like, I give all of my money, my $200 to kids that need it. So I'm not doing this to make money. I'm not doing it to be famous. I'm not doing any of that shit. I'm just trying to, if it helps, it helps, so.
Real quick, Froggy in the chat says, how did he put up the wall? Maybe if you want to help people out, because I think weird stuff like this does happen. So how does one defend themselves against stuff like this? What did you...
Okay, so this is how I did it. I don't know if this works, but for me, I concentrated myself in my heart in my soul, basically the center of my body, a warm white light. And then I extended it out 5 feet, 10 feet around me, around my house, around my neighborhood, around the people I love. And it just concentrated on extending that feeling. That was just warm love and light around me, like just basically emanating from me, you know, encompassing everybody like a cocoon, just warm light and love, you know. And I try to do that constantly, you know, to try to. That's why, like, I'll just out of the blue post shit on Twitter that's like, go outside and, you know, grab somebody, do something random, and just love somebody, just give them something, just do something amazing outside of your boundaries, you know.
It reminds me of DeLong and what we were talking about earlier, where he says, like, you could shout out the name of Jesus to repel stuff, but it's really not that. It's like this universal love that you're tapping into. So it feels like that's what you're kind of doing, maybe.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
preemptively, like pre-experience.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, it's always said that like positivity is very easily overpowers negativity, right? So the idea of just visualizing that symbolically, you know what I mean? It does something. You know, what do they say? Like the mind is the builder, right? So just, you know, you imagine these things and it becomes a very powerful thing. If your mind believes it's real, or at least has a way to visualize it, to bring it into reality for you, and even through your imagination. We don't even know what the imagination is. Like, how do ideas become real? Through our own hands, you know what I mean? Through our actions. It's such a strange thing, but yeah, the idea of putting up something is a really probably a very good move, because you don't really know where it's coming from. When I was listening to Len Baer describe his symptoms, and honestly a lot of other people describe their symptoms of being like not let's just say approached this way, and sometimes attacked this way, it would become almost impossible to fight off and to think of where it's coming from next, right? But it could be as simple as that. I mean, Len, he goes to bed with earphones on. He's listening to podcasts and music all day, all night, just to counteract what is otherwise a 24-hour process. So
yeah, no, that's it. I mean, you know, it's randomly is what Bledsoe had said, you know, that they told him, somebody told him, is like, just keep singing a song in your head, right? That keeps him out, right? Like, I can't remember what he was talking about. He was doing something, I think it was at NASA, and he was like, you're going back to this black box, and, you know, it's going to read your mind, but just come up with a song and just, you know, sing the song in your head the whole time. You know, he's like, then they can't get in. It's like wild, right? Did you guys hear that one? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, and it reminds me of the same kind of thing. The same kind of, like, you're almost creating noise around yourself. Coin exchange in the chat, and we're probably going to have to wrap up soon, but this was a good question, I thought, too. Friend of the show. Please ask John how many others in the community described similar experiences, any differences from others with dissimilar encounters?
It's kind of like, what's weird is that nobody would share like exact, like, I was really eminent about this is what he said, and this, like, whatever, this happened to me and this is what happened. And I got back a lot of like, you know, the voice to skull technology. And I'm like, well, fuck it. Yes, I know that. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so it's weird. It's almost like everybody kind of like fucking Collins deleted it for me. Like, like, dude, I'm here with you. I understand what's going on. Like, I'm not judging you or trying to pull shit out of you. Like, this shit happened to me, you know? And it was like, yeah, it was kind of like that, you know, that's what I got, which was fucking weird. It wasn't like a verbatim what was said or whatever, because I'm imagining it was probably personal to you know, whatever the person was, you know, that had experience. And, you know, and to be fair, at the time I was like, you know, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, I was super excited for TTSA, like fucking, you know, the History Channel, like DeLong, like all this shit was happening, you know, like I'm super excited. And it was like, I guess at some point I was starting to question, like, okay, what's going on, you know? And it was like almost like a call to arms, like, you're fucking with us or against us. And, you know, I'm not the one to just conform. I'm like, well, fuck you, you know? I mean, and that was my response. Like,
yeah.
super aggressive and angry, which, I don't know, hindsight, but still, it's like, why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah, it's hella invasive, right? Like,
or who was behind this?
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
Hearing other people did it too. It's like, oh, that's crazy, man.
Right, and other people with the same voice, right?
Wait, how many was it though? Like 3, 4, 5 people? 2?
It was more than one. Yeah, it was more than one. I don't want to speculate.
Cool.
Put that out there. But I mean, like, some people took it way worse than others. You know what I mean? Like, some people took it way worse than others.
When you say worse, do you mean like they became afraid?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah.
Clearly, it affected their behavior and their approach to ufology after that.
Some people just didn't come back.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
And some people took a different approach.
Yeah.
Some people got on board after.
Maybe. Maybe.
Wow.
But so what does that tell you? So what is there? We know there's the technology that can do this. We know there's a technology that can influence people at a mass scale or individual scale, that can rally people to a cause to do things they normally wouldn't do. I mean, you're already conducive to it. Maybe they're like, oh, like you were saying earlier, like, oh yeah, maybe these 30 people think, pick up on this, right? So, yeah. And they got to me and I was like, fuck off. I got shit to do.
Yeah, which is not. I mean, that's like the same thing. Like when you think about like what makes a person on the street
a schizo,
vulnerable. Vulnerable to robbery.
Oh,
right. It's how they carry themselves. Are they going to fight back? You don't want to try these little scheming moves on someone who's calling you out right away. You're like, okay, like even if you're a salesman, right, or you got like these little card tricks or whatever, you're going to try to stick to the people who are easy marks. And just by being strong on the opposing side early on is a good defense. I mean, way to go with your gut on that. The fact that you found out more people were hearing or experiencing something similar, John, is wild. Because it's not just that we know the technology exists. The people involved in this inner circle group are the ones who would know about it. It's almost like they would be the ones who are testing it for the government through. Here's what I think, and I'm not trying to be like super conspiratorial. We gotta close out soon, but like,
yeah.
If when I became aware of Voice to Skull and this type of phenomena that was happening, I started to think through my knowledge of SRI and my knowledge of which is the Stanford Research Institute, which is where remote viewing kind of came from. And the CIA needed a place, private, away from government or whatever, to investigate what they thought, and this is the story, what they thought the Russians and the Chinese might have been doing with their psychic research. So the American government and the CIA they basically put out a bid, and a lot of people bite, but Stanford Research Institute gets the contract. So now they're the ones in charge of these studies that they have to do, and they're looking for results, again, based on the Chinese and the Russian stuff. And like they developed this stuff like remote viewing and whatnot. But like I started thinking like recently with the research with Kit Green and Gary Nolan from Stanford, right? Like they're looking at brains that have been altered by this type of activity specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the story on the surface that Gary presents is that he was given by the government or whatever a cohort of brain scans. They kind of look similar, but he was able to separate them into Havana syndrome and then this other thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing being experiencers, true quote unquote experiencers, people who have had one, pilots, remote viewers too. Right, remote viewers are in there. Pilots, people at Skinwalker Ranch. I think Semivan's brain scans are in there. Even probably Gary Nolan's himself. And I started to think like, okay, well, there's a connection, but there's a separation. What is it? And then I just considered that like if this Voice to Skull stuff was happening and this like technology to put ideas into people's minds, like the stuff that's happening at SRI right now, and with Gary Nolan and Kit Green, could easily just be a way to launder illegal and illicit testing that was done on people, citizens, and government staff, and a way to like now they're laundering. This is actually a new condition, and they're really trying to like because I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but if
makes sense.
If I did that, I would want to cover it up that way too. So I'm like looking at this stuff now with a whole new light, like even the Skinwalker Ranch stuff. And I'm like, okay, I know that there's these zones, but there's also these focal points for like studies that need to be done to figure out what's happening, and people are used as guinea pigs. And even Elizondo, I think, said that there's one instrument that can always be used to detect this stuff or whatever, and I think it's a human. I think it's our consciousness is the only thing that could, and so they just throw people out there. Like we've talked to like Skinwalker Ranch former staff who were like, yeah, I would just put out on a lawn chair from 2 to 4.
Chris Bartle and I talked about a lot, man. We talked about it in the space a couple of weeks ago. Chris Bartle and I, and he's like, yeah, I'm fucking guinea pig the whole time. He's like, Chris Bartle was saying his MRI was displayed on Skinwalker Ranch and other shit without his permission.
We need him on like next week. Man.
And, okay, so Chris Bartle was out there and it was happening, and where did his brain scans end up? Not just on TV, but in Gary Nolan and Kit Green's test.
Yeah.
So it's like
he sent me the fucking thing that he had to sign to get his brain scan. He sent me the document that he had to sign from Bigelow. He got the letterhead and everything.
Fucking Bigelow.
It was basically like, when you do this, anything that we've ever done to you, anything that we're ever going to do to you, like anything that's ever happened is basically on your own. As soon as you sign this and do this MRI, like we're basically off the hook for everything.
Oh my God.
Yep.
And that's a billionaire's lawyer's document. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
It's like this long. It's not even big. It's basically like you're fucked. If you sign this, do whatever the fuck you want. We're out. And like he did it, man.
Darth McBee says, John, our eldest daughter was treated at a Shriner Hospital. Awesome organization.
Oh, thank you so much.
But I do have to get going here soon too.
All right, here.
No, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
This was a really great episode, great conversation as always, John. We got to have you back.
Oh, I love you guys.
As often as
you know, I love you guys, man. Seriously,
dude, we love you, and you know that too, though. We all know we all love each other here. We all get each other.
Yeah.
How many people get like the occult stuff and the weird counter intel stuff, but also take UFOs seriously and respect experiencers? You know what I mean? So,
yeah. And I appreciate you guys, and thank you for letting me just ramble on and just drink whiskey and just be wild, and
it's fun, right?
I love you guys. Seriously,
it's a great Friday show. I think we should just do whiskey Fridays with John as much as possible. And John, we're happy to come on your show whenever. I think we might have Jay of Project Unity on tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I talked to him. I talked to him today. I said, "You guys got to." Yeah, I said, "You got to do that. Those guys are rad." And he's like, "Yeah, I got to do that. I'll reach out."
He's one of my favorite people in the whole field too.
No,
he's not afraid to call out this stuff.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
As are you too, John. I respect people who call that stuff out. I'm like,
he's a good friend. I'd love to come on with him. We could do that sometime. With both of us.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And definitely, we got to hook up and just hang out in person and just fucking be awesome. And you know what? Here's what happens when everything gets weird and everything gets wild and you just get all fucking scared and things are getting weird. Just remember that you are a billion times more powerful than you can ever imagine. You're an amazing fucking entity that's living and breathing and can do anything if you put your mind to it. I promise you. You just think about it, pray about it, concentrate on it, be good, spread love, and just feel love in your heart and your mind. And I swear you can do anything. I promise you can do anything. It's going to suck for a while. It might seem like you're never going to make it, but right when it gets to the bottom, everything gets better. And if you keep that in your heart and your mind, I promise you the world is yours, man. And I love you guys, and I know you love that, and I know you feel that. So thank you guys for being rad.
Thank you,
John. Awesome episode.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Great.
I'm gonna hop off. I'll see you. Hopefully, maybe next year's Contact in the Desert.
I'm gonna just fly out and hang out with you. Fuck it.
Okay, I'm down. Yeah.
Hell
yeah. All right.
Dude, we gotta do like an in-person live show one day. Okay.
Yeah. Fuck
That's
yeah.
next on the agenda.
The West Coast.
Yes. All right, guys. Until next time, this has been another episode of SkyFireNews Live. Jon Majerowski, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Until next time, peace.
In the open road, I saw your hand from the window. It was then that I was certain that I wanted purple curtains. I know your mom's a looker, but what if I just called her a hooker? It's a harassment campaign. Stop asking me how tall my wife is. That is harassment. What I do is not the same. Maybe I just dabble in harassment campaigns. I wanted revenge because someone called me lame. Maybe I just wanted some people I trusted to protect me from the truth. I don't know what I was so afraid of. What if that was you? What if red and two are really new? What if they really see me? Oh Lord, no one's ever really seen me. What have I done? Oh Lord, it's time to tell the truth about what I really do.
This is SkyFireNews, the best UFO show on the internet. SkyFireNews is on the internet.
I hate SkyFireNews. I hate Chupacabra. I fucking hate Red Panda. And I hate Heather. Like, I genuinely hate them.
Fire News.
What the fuck is this world? What have they done to us? What did they do to us?
Have patience on me. Don't give up on me. I'm on cosmic
the best UFO show on the internet. SkyFire